Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Okay,
I can hear
great.
you.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're doing a new model where half of us are virtual and then half of us are in person. So I apologize. It's the first time we're doing this, and so there might be some kinks that we work out, but we appreciate everyone's patience. And can we get a roll call?
Hallie Mae Pham,
Present.
Tanya Fairley,
Present.
Megan Ellis,
Present.
Kelly Funk,
Present.
Reese Isbell,
Here.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Present.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Present.
Tamika Miller,
Present.
Danielle Munoz,
Present.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Present.
Steve Weeks will be joining us later. We have a quorum.
Thank you so much, Natalie. So again, welcome everyone. First and foremost, I would love to, or it gives me great pleasure to introduce our newest member, Tamika Miller. She is a industry member and manicurist joining us on the board. We are so happy to have her. Tamika, would you like to greet everyone, or if you weren't expecting that, we can move on.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Tamika. Okay, welcome everyone. We are in a new year, 2024. I want to just briefly reflect on the year that we just had. Thank our board, our staff, and everyone for the tremendous work that was accomplished last year, including amongst many other things. I don't have a complete list, but you know, having a written exam in simplified Chinese, implementing the hairstylist license, getting started with the remedial education in place of initial fines and citations, the tremendous work with social media, the social media blasts, which I'm sure we'll discuss further once we reach that item in the agenda, all of the implementation of what was required after our sunset review for SB 803 is really a banner year, and I'm so grateful to our staff, to Christy, and our wonderful board members for their insights and dedication. And I am looking forward to a new year. And one last note, since we are half virtual and half in person, I would ask, because I'll tell you from my side, everybody looks like a teeny tiny little kind of dot on my screen. So if you'd like to speak, I would just ask that you just go on the mic and just mention again your name. This is member last name, just so that everyone can track who is speaking. So I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to item number 3, board member updates. Would anyone like to speak or provide any updates? Okay, I'm not seeing any indication in the hearing room, and nowhere here um, on WebEx. And I believe Member Weeks isn't here, but I would like to congratulate him on his newest addition to his family. All right. Okay, great. Okay, so let's pass that on to him once he arrives. All right. And okay, if there's nothing from any other board members at this time, let's move on to item number 4, DCA update. I believe we have a guest with us today. Is Yvonne Durantes there in person?
Yes, she's coming.
Wonderful. Okay, let's give her a moment and we will give her the floor. Thank you so much for joining us today, Yvonne.
Able to hear me all right? Great. All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to everyone, even though we're almost in March. But great to see you all. I also want to extend a welcome to new member Miller. Welcome aboard. And so I have a few updates for you. We will be sending out the Board and Bureau Relations monthly email shortly. So a lot of the information that I will be covering will also be on there. We'll also be sending out our winter newsletter, which will also include this information. So if there's anything that you want to reference back to, it'll likely be in either that email or that newsletter, but I'm also happy to repeat anything. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So to start off, we do have an update for our Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency update. We do have a new secretary that just started this month and was appointed by Governor Newsom in November and sworn in, I believe, last week. So we do want to just extend a warm welcome to Secretary Moss, Tamika Moss, and just look forward to working under her new leadership. Moving on to the budget, we do have a current year expenditure freeze. In December, the Department of Finance issued a budget letter that directs all agencies and departments under the governor to take immediate action to reduce current year expenditures. Given the fiscal outlook, the state of California anticipates a significant general fund budget deficit in fiscal years 2023 to 2024 and 2024 to 2025, which will require all state entities to take immediate measures to ensure more prudent spending. Except for time-sensitive, emergency-related, mission-critical, and information security needs, immediate action includes the cancellation of non-essential travel, such as participation in seminars, conferences, and training both in-state and out-of-state. Boards should immediately review all spending and determine where savings can be realized. Specifically, when planning meetings, it is important for boards to conduct a cost analysis to determine the most economical option for the state. Please remember that when traveling, you need to consider all forms of transportation and hotel accommodations to determine the most economical option for the state. DCA has issued further guidance to leadership about exemption requests for purchases, contracts, and travel. DCA appreciates your partnership as we work together to reduce costs. If you do have any questions, please reach out to us. Moving on to our DEI update, the DEI Steering Committee held its quarterly meeting in December 15th. The committee reviewed a draft DEI intranet page for employees, re-elected its chairperson and vice chair for 2024, and discussed DEI training. After approval at the meeting, the DEI committee announced the launch of the DEI intranet page to department staff. This page provides a centralized location with DEI-related tools and information and real-time updates on the department's DEI activities for all employees. Providing DEI training opportunities continues to be a priority for the department and the steering committee. And DCA is pleased to offer board members a DEI training on how leaders navigate DEI dialogue in the workplace. The training is recorded and can be taken online at your convenience. And BBR did send out an email, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago, with the information on how to access that training. So if you do have any questions in regard to accessing LMS or reaching this training, please feel free to reach out to me. And again, you can reach it at your convenience, so it is pre-recorded already. DCA continues to support DCA's boards and bureaus in expanding culturally competent communications and promoting the importance of meeting the needs of all California consumers, licensees, and applicants. The latest issue of DCA's Consumer Connection magazine includes articles with information important to consumers, including a feature cover story translated into 3 languages to further the reach of information. The magazine is available on the DCA homepage, and printed copies are also available upon request. Moving on to threat assessment training, DCA held a threat assessment training for board and bureau leadership on February 2nd. The California Highway Patrol Officer Wong provided the training where participants learned about steps that can be taken in the event of an active threat. DCA plans to explore providing this type of training to all board members and staff in the future. Moving on to Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. On February 2nd, DCA provided guidance on the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act amendments to the teleconference meeting requirements, which took effect January 1st of this year. The guidance provides a general overview of the traditional in-person and teleconference requirements and detailed discussion on the legal requirements and best practices for conducting meetings using the 2 new teleconference meeting procedures. DCA is here to help boards and bureaus navigate through all these requirements, so please feel free to reach out to us or to your legal counsel. Moving on to legislative implementation update. The Federal Professional License Portability and State Registration update. The department successfully developed and launched a new process and portal in support of service members and their families following a new federal and state laws that were passed in 2023, known as the Federal Professional License Portability and State Registration Portal. This new DCA online portal allows boards and bureaus to accept online requests from military service members and their spouses who currently hold a valid license in good standing in another state, district, or territory to register their practice in California within the same profession or vocation if they relocate to California because of military orders. This online portal allows DCA boards and bureaus to timely receive, track, and review requests to ensure compliance with federal and state law. Registrations are required to be approved within 30 days of the board and bureau receiving all necessary documentation. In addition, DCA's military resources webpage and board and bureau licensing webpages were updated with federal professional license portability and state registration information. Currently, there are 21 individuals who have registered using the portal and are authorized to practice in California. DCA has shared the new portal with representatives from the U.S. Department of U.S. Department of Defense, California's Governor's Military Council, California Department of Veteran Affairs, and the California Military Department, as well as relevant legislative committee staff. DCA also provided an outreach toolkit in which board and bureaus can share to social media and listserv emails regarding the launch of this new portal. Moving on to SB 372, which was the Menjivar bill. This was signed by Governor Newsom in September and became effective January 1st of this year, and requires DCA boards and bureaus to update license records if they receive government-issued documentation demonstrating a legal change of name or gender for gender transition or domestic violence reasons. This bill allows licensees to request a prior name not to be published online in connection to a license or current name, and establishes a process for individuals to access a licensee's enforcement records under the prior name. This required DCA to ensure the previous name does not appear in connection with the new name, while also ensuring that previous disciplinary records follow the individual so consumers can contact the board and bureau to obtain the previous disciplinary information. Last thing is for those who have been appointed or reappointed within the last year, our board member orientation training is coming up at the end of March. So if you do need to register or have any questions in regard to it, it will be held March 27th. It'll be a full virtual day of training. And if for whatever reason you're not able to make it that day, we will also be offering it again in June and October. And due to the budget constraints from this year, they will be all held virtually. So that's all I have for you. I am happy to take any questions.
I'm just curious on the budget cuts. Is that an open-ended, or is there a specific length of time? Is there a couple quarters, or is that to be continued?
Yeah, so, there will be the May revise, which I think will provide a little bit more clarity and more of a timeline in terms of what it looks like.
When is that?
In May. I don't know exactly what date, but yeah, it will be in May.
How often they were going to revisit that?
Yeah, and we'll have another update for you for when you meet after that. Any other questions? Great. Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I have one question. Sorry, Jacob here.
Oh,
What
no.
was the bill's name around the name changes? You
Yeah,
said it was SB what?
372, I believe.
Cool, thanks.
Yes, 372, SB.
Awesome,
Bill.
thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Yvonne. Any other questions from in the room or online? Okay. Thank you again. Moving on to our next agenda item. And again, I just remind everyone, it would be helpful if you announced your name before you comment, just so that we can track who is speaking, because sometimes with the pace of conversation, your kind of close-up doesn't pop up quickly enough, so we actually can't tell who's speaking. Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item number 5, annual election of officers. So the way this will work, or as a reminder to our members and to our new members, we're going to first ask for nominations, and then we will ask if the individual will accept the nomination. Then we will have a motion, a second, discuss as a board. We'll go to public comment, and then we'll vote. Okay, Chrissy, can you remind me, is it just the two, which positions do we need to elect this year?
Yes, just the two, president and vice president.
Okay, so we'll start with vice president. Can we get nominations? Our esteemed member Fairley has been serving as our vice president this year. I would like to start by nominating her to serve as vice president again this year. Tanya, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful. Okay.
Do you need us to second? This
Uh,
is Yolanda.
That's the nomination. So then we just need we actually need a motion and a second.
Yolanda Jimenez, I
Sofsky, yeah,
motion.
motion.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, that's not a problem. So I heard Yolanda first. So Yolanda moved to made the motion to have Vice President Tanya serve as our Vice President again this year. Member Rostovsky seconded. Okay, any board discussion about this? All right, I'm not seeing any online, and I don't see anything from the meeting room. Okay, so let's move on to public comment then. Christy, is there anyone who would like to comment publicly in person?
I'm seeing no one in the room for public comment.
All right, okay, and our moderator, can we open it for public comment here on WebEx?
Absolutely. We are open for public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment on agenda item 5, please raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. For our mobile device users, you have 3 different screens, and you may need to hit the ellipses button, the ... in order to find the one where you raise your hand. People will be given 3 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning before their time expires. And Roger, I see that you have a hand up and have had a hand up for a while. This is specifically on the motion. If you would like to make a comment on the motion, I will call on you in just a second. Otherwise, please lower that hand. And we will give you an opportunity to speak on agenda item 19, public comment for items not on the agenda later in the meeting. All right, looking around, we do not have any request for comment on the motion. Do you wish to continue?
We can close public comment. Thank you so much, moderator. All right, okay, so with that, can we call for a vote?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis, Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. Congratulations, Tanya, and thank you for everything that you do. Okay, let's move on to the president position. Okay, at this time, I will now open it for nominations.
This is Member Funk. Oh, sorry, Tanya. This is Member Funk, and I'd like to nominate Callie Mae Pham for a second term as our fabulous president.
Thank you so much, Member Funk. I will accept that nomination. Do we have a motion?
I would so moved.
Okay, Member Funk moves. Do we have a second?
Jimenez, Yolanda second.
Okay, I hear Member Jimenez second. Thank you so much for that. All right, let's move on to public comment on that motion. Christy, are there any members of the public that would like to comment there in the room with you?
I have no members here in the room.
Got it. All right. And moderator, may we open the public comment here on WebEx?
We are open for public comment on the new motion via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And Roger Little, I see your hand up. Bear with us just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning before your time expires. All right, I see you've unmuted, but we haven't heard from you yet. Bear with us just a moment. I'm going to pull up a recommendation. Hang on, please. I have a suggestion on the screen for things that you can change in order to have your audio come through.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Go.
Okay, great. I don't know why my hand keeps going up. It's a technical difficulty, but I don't wish to ask no questions during this whole hearing, so you can just mute me.
All right, thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
There are no other requests for comment.
Okay, thank you so much. So we will close public comment for this time. Okay, may we call a vote?
May Pham,
Yes.
Tanya Fairley,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone. This is I really don't have enough words to express how much it means to me to be part of this board. And thank you again for choosing me to serve in this role. I am continually inspired and just blown away by the dedication and insights and passion that everyone on this board brings to the table. I'm constantly learning. And so I will continue to do my best to help lead the meetings. And with that, okay, let's move on to item number 6, appointment of board members to standing committees for 2024. Christy, could you start us off?
I sure will. So in your packet is a list of our committees, and we've also listed their description for each of their committees, and then we've listed the 2023 board committee membership. And so, as always with our disciplinary review committee, we do ask that everybody serve on that committee because sometimes we shift around and we used to meet a lot more. We used to meet monthly for this committee, but it's been a lot less lately. But just in case we need to call on you, or if you're interested, that would be, we just ask that everybody sit on that committee. Our committees right now are fairly light, other than our education and outreach, which does have, well, education and outreach and licensing has 5. And I'm trying to think, Sabina, how many, what is the max we can have? 6? Okay, so we can have 6. So what I think we should do to make this easy is you can each decide if you want to stay where you are, which is totally fine. And then we would ask Tamika what her interest would be, because you could pretty much join whichever committee you would like. But we like to put you on DRC. If that's okay, I think we could maybe just run through each person and see if they would like to stay where they are, or by all means shift or join a different one and drop another one. So that's that's also something you can do at this point.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. First, I would like to check in with Member Miller. Do you have any questions or would you like some clarifications? Would it be helpful to you to hear?
No, thank you. I did read through the information, so I feel like I'm a little bit familiar with what's happening right now.
Okay,
But thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's start with Member Fairley. Which committees would you like to stay on the existing committees, and would you like to join any new ones, or would you like to step off of any of them?
No, I think I'm going to stay with the ones that I'm at right now. I can't add any more to my plate, but it's been a pleasure serving on the committees that I am on right now. It's been a pleasure serving as VP. And I think I have enough right now.
You are on quite a bit. You might actually be on the most. I think maybe you and Steve. So thank you so much. Okay, so we've got that. All right, let's move on to Megan isn't present. Member Ellis is not present today. Is that correct? Oh, she is. Okay, wonderful. Yes, Member Ellis, would you like to stay on your committees, and would you like to add any or subtract any?
I'm very happy with the committees that I am on. If I could remain on education and outreach as well as legislative and budget committees, that would be wonderful. And if any other committees require assistance, always happy to help.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Member Ellis. Okay, let's move on to Member Funk.
Hello. So I'm on the DRC and the Enforcement and Inspections Committee, which I love. I feel like in the year that I've been had the pleasure of working with this committee, we've been able to make some really good overall tonal changes and some good recommendations for moving forward. So I love serving on Enforcement and Inspection Committee, and I'd like to stay there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to Member Isbell.
Yes, hello. So I am on DEI, Education, Health and Safety, and Legislative. I would like to potentially either end my role on education or on health and safety. And I know health and safety, we don't have very many people, which is, I think, why I was there. But I'm curious if we're going to have people here today for that. Otherwise, I would like to remove myself from education.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So we have 5 members on health on education, so I don't think it would be a problem if we took you off that committee. And for health and safety, it's up to you. Health and safety, those are the board members that are on there, but we obviously also have members from different areas of expertise. So health and safety is usually it's smaller now, but usually in general a bigger committee. So it wouldn't just be us 3 if you decided to step off. There are still other members on there. Is that what you would like? If it's not a problem?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm rambling, I guess. I was going to remove myself from one of the 2, so I think I'll remove myself from education and stay with health and safety, legislative, and DEI.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that clarification. Okay. All right. So Member Isbell will remain on health and safety. Okay. And just as my plan is we'll go through everyone, and then I'll open it up in case anyone changes their minds or hears of any openings and would like to jump in and fill those. So we'll come back and give you an opportunity to do that if you've already made your selections. Okay. Moving on to Member Jimenez.
I'd like to stay with my current committees, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, and Member Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I'd like to remain on my current committees, but I'd also like to add health and safety.
Wonderful. Okay,
thank
so
you.
we'll add you on to health and safety. Okay, all right, and Member Munoz.
I'd like to stay with my committees as well.
Okay, thank you so much. And Member Rostovsky?
I'll stay in mine, and I'm happy to also remain as chairperson for diversity and equity if that makes anything easier. So
Oh, yes,
Thank you.
usually the elections happen within the committee, so you don't have to make
Oh,
that
okay. So
decision
never
now.
mind.
Thank
Well,
you.
just throwing that out there. All
All
right.
right, thank you. And is Member Weeks, has he arrived?
I'm sorry, I'm told he will be here in about 10 minutes.
Not a problem, thank you. Okay, and all right, now, Member Miller, which committees would you like to join?
I am happy to join, was it DCR? Did you recommend? DRC. Okay. I'm happy
There's
to
not a lot of
join
choice
that.
there, but yeah.
And then also, let's see, Licensing and Examination Committee.
Okay, wonderful. So that will make 6. Any other interests? No pressure, just checking.
Not at this time, but thank you.
All right, great. Okay, so we now have 6 for licensing and examination. So I think that one would be full. But and then we have Paulette joining health and safety. Are any other members want to add on or change? Just checking one more time. I don't see anything from anyone. Okay, great. Chrissy, do you have need any more information than that? Or are we good?
That should conclude this agenda item.
Okay, wonderful. All right, let's move on to item number 7, review and possible approval of 2024 board member guidelines and procedurals manual. Chrissy, could you let us know what has changed from the prior version?
I sure will. So these are very technical changes, so there's no content that's been changed in this, but I will let you know exactly what has changed. We made some grammatical changes, so I'm not gonna go over those, but what I really want you to see the changes on page, let me just get there real quick. Starting on page 19. We did have several changes in the reimbursement rates for travel. So on page 19, the very bottom first bullet, mileage reimbursement is currently 0.67 cents. So that has gone up. On the next page, we have clarified taxis or transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft, and it lists that you may receive reimbursement for tips up to $2 or 20%, whichever amount is greater. And then also the cost for meals that will be reimbursed has also been updated. So you'll see breakfast is now $13, lunch is $15, and dinner is $26, with anything over $25 requiring a receipt. That is it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from our members about these changes or these updates? Okay, seeing none, can we get a motion to approve the 2024 manual?
This is Danielle Munoz, and I so move.
Wonderful. Can I have a second?
Natalie.
Board Member Ellis, seconded.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All right, let's move on to, are there any members of the public that would like to comment on this item in person, Christy?
We have no public comment in the room.
Thank you so much. Okay, moderator, may we have public comment here on WebEx?
We are open for public comment via WebEx. Now is the time to raise the hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. And mobile device users, you may need to hit the ... button at the bottom of your screen in order to find the right page with the hand button. We're going to take a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for comment on the motion, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. Okay, let's call for a vote on the motion.
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to item number 8, discussion and possible approval of the July 17th, 2023 board meeting minutes. At this time, I'd like to ask if there are any corrections or comments from board members on these minutes. Okay, I'm seeing no comments or corrections from the room. All right, and I don't see any on WebEx either. Okay, so if there are no other no corrections, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from July 17th, 2023?
I move to approve this minutes.
Okay, that sounded like member Isbell. Can I have a second?
Jacob seconds.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second from member Rostovsky. Okay, and let's move on to public comment from the hearing room. Anything
Kelly
to say?
May, this is Sabina. Can I interrupt real quick?
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
Sorry. Can we have the date of the meeting in the motion, please, just for clarification?
This is member Isbell, and I move to motion to pass the July 17th board meeting minutes,
And that's 2023.
2023.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
And
with the second?
member Rostovsky, is that clarify your second? Great.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
I was like, wait. I was like, what's happening? Yes.
Okay, and can we have, and Christy, is there any public comment on agenda item number 8 when they're in the hearing room?
No public comment in the room.
Okay, and can we have public comment opened here on WebEx?
We are now accepting public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in user style *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And as a reminder to our mobile device users, you need to hit that ... button, the ellipses button at the bottom of your screen in order to find the right page in order to tap your hand button. Looking around, I see no request for public comment via WebEx. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, may we have a roll call vote?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis, Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky.
Yes. Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you so much. So at this time, we're going to take a short 5-minute recess. Okay, moderator, can we indicate that we're going to take a 5-minute recess? Right now it is, let's see, 9:44. Well, let's come back at 9:50. Thank you. Okay, it is now 9:50. Can we have everyone come back? Oh, sorry. Was there something from the meeting room? The audio cut off.
It's yes, no, that's incredible. The list you developed is like
Okay, everyone, our mics are live
no,
again.
you're on the right track.
Okay, great. I think I see everyone headed back to their seats. Okay, Christy, are we ready in the room?
We are ready in the room.
Okay, wonderful. And Member Weeks is back with us. Great. Okay. Welcome. All right, so let's move on to agenda number 9, executive management reports. Christy.
All right, here we go. The most exciting part always of our board meeting, right? Okay, I want to take just a quick minute and acknowledge my staff that's here today. This is your amazing management team. We are fully staffed right now. And I'm going to embarrass them real quickly, just because we do have new members. Of course, Carrie Harris is with me to my left. She is our Deputy Executive Officer, and I don't do anything without her, literally. And we, of course, all know Natalie and Allison, who make everything run, but we have our inspections site and fine managers, which is Ashwin Mehta and Tiffany Moore. We have our enforcement managers, which is Addison Beach and wait, did I get that right? Denise Murata. We have our licensing managers, James Zimmerman and Mick Magat. In the back, we have Maria Lay, who is our admin manager. She's sitting in the back for a reason, and I'll tell you that in a second. And then we have our new licensing and admin chief, Priscilla Rivera. These are the people that are working so very hard. And let me tell you, the last 6 weeks have been so very hard. And so with that, just a quick note that we are moving, as we've told you before, we are moving into this building, almost right above us, pretty much. And so Maria is waiting to run out to meet with the contractors because we're having some work done today. We will be moving at the end of March. So needless to say, we've been in our current building for a very long time. So we are purging and purging and then purging some more. And so it's been quite the last few weeks with our staff and all of this team really making it happen while keeping the workload going. So thank you. We'll start with our admin and operations report. They are fully staffed right now. I already mentioned the move to the new office. The next page is our budget projections. So you can see that our board continues to have a healthy budget. Nothing too different in that area. The next page is our fund condition. I do want to know that in about the middle of your page, you'll see a 15 million and a 25 million. That 15 million is a new loan to the general fund. And the 25 million is a payback of a general fund loan that we did some time ago. I'll pause for any questions.
So we have a
Microphone.
Sorry. Working out?
Let's see.
Anyway.
There you go.
Okay. So there's a
No.
Online, we're not able to hear Member Weeks's mic.
It's just not close enough. Yeah, it's
I was asked a question.
actually, it doesn't seem like it
Yeah.
that might. So Steve asked if we just had one fund, which I responded, yes. All right, moving on. Past the blue page, you will see our licensing exams and disciplinary review committee report. We have 5 vacancies in that unit. It is definitely one of our units with the highest vacancy rate right now. They're entry-level positions. They're just constant changing. We were close to being fully staffed, and then some people got promoted out of our board. So we're constantly reviewing and interviewing and hopefully making those positions filled soon. Our emails continue to be excessive. At the time that this report was prepared, there were 1,800 pending. I believe there's well over 2,000 right now. And we've been working to establish a unit to handle this workload. Unfortunately, these positions in the state are just becoming harder and harder to fill. So we just haven't got the candidates to fill these positions, but we continue to try. Next, you'll see our quarterly applications received. Pretty standard for that information. We go in next to our written exam results. You can see they continue to be low. I did meet last week. I am part of the advisory committee for the exam vendor, which is PSI. We had an advisory committee meeting and we discussed the passage rates. I believe I might have mentioned in the last meeting that the barber pass rate was changed to 70%, which is based on a psychometric review of all the questions and how they're performing. The cosmetology exam all the exams have now been reviewed. The cosmetology exam has been changed to 73% pass rate, and the remainder of our exams have not changed. So basically, the psychometricians went through and evaluated all the questions that are being asked and looked at where these questions, I don't try to understand the psychometric world, but they've evaluated it and felt that the pass rates for some of those are fine. They're working correctly. And then they modified, of course, barber and cosmetology.
Does the pass rate on Spanish reflect the 73%? Is that 73? This number is at a 73%.
No, this number is at a 75%. So we'll start to see that. And I receive a report weekly on exam pass rates. And so we are seeing those pass rates come back up.
This is President Pam Christie. I know that when we switched over to a written exam only, we saw a dip in passage rates and we were expecting that they would kind of come back up as people got more familiar with the new exam. Is that are we seeing that trend, or can you compare it to how it was?
We're seeing that trend in some license types. I can say the esthetician license type, we've definitely seen it rebound to what it was in the past. The manicurist is slowly rebounding, but so far we have not seen that with barber and cosmetology.
I see, but you're closely looking at it and working with the exam provider too.
Correct.
Okay, great. And it looks like we have a comment from Member Munoz.
Yeah, I just wanted to point that out, I guess, where you were going with the Spanish pass rate still being pretty low, and the Cosmo one in particular, I mean, 15%. So is this on I know there's a committee, licensing and exam committee. Is this a topic on that committee, or where is this being talked about?
It is. We have talked about it in that committee. I'm also definitely working with the exam vendor specifically on the Spanish pass rates right now. And so we hope to have some more information on that. Again, I want to point out that the board doesn't have any control over quality of education. So we cannot go into our schools and determine that their quality of education is matching what it should be and what it should be for people to pass the exam. We do not have oversight of schools. We can tell them what to teach, but we certainly don't have any authority to go in and enforce any of, that's obviously the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary does the quality of education. We do not. So we can look at all the data we want, and we can continue to look at the exam pass rates. But I think it's important that we remember that our board does not have control over quality of education.
Thanks, Christy. You were getting to the next question about it. It was like, what do we know? And then what are the steps being taken by those whose scope this is in to address the pass rate? Just so that we're accountable. We see this number. I don't want us to just pass over it, I guess, as a board.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
Who within the scope of probably post-secondary board, but whose eye is on that 15%, those low pass rates for the Spanish exam?
Oh,
Just
I
for
can
our
tell you
information.
everyone's eyes are on it.
Yes. Okay. What do we know?
Everyone's.
What do we know so far about the discrepancy?
Well, we've looked at the translations. We've looked at we monitor where all these applicants are coming from. Some of these applicants come from schools that teach only in English, but the individuals do choose to take that examination in Spanish. We look at if they're, the first time test taker versus repeat test takers. And so it's definitely, I actually just, we just spoke about this at our advisory committee last week, that we're looking to see what we can do to have maybe licensed individuals in California who are Spanish speaking help with those translations to make sure that they're reviewing. The exam is a toggle exam. They can move back and forth from English to Spanish. But we continue to just see those scores not getting higher at all.
Mm-hmm.
This is Member Funk. Can we instigate conversations to start meeting with the powers that be with the Bureau of Post-Secondary Education? Is this something we can start having discussions with them about?
We do. We meet with the Bureau as well as the department. So, I mean, it's definitely on everyone's radar. I can't certainly speak for the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary on what their laws would allow them to do in this scenario. I can tell you, I've looked at many schools that are accredited and they continue to have incredibly low passage rates, and I have reported that to the accrediting agency. They're supposed to maintain a 70% pass rate. Many of these schools are not, and yet maintain their accreditation. I have spoke to the accrediting agencies. I have given names of schools to the accrediting agencies. So we'll be following up on that to see if anything's being done from that level. We don't require accreditation, but when we have accreditation, we at least expect those schools to be falling into the 70% pass rate, and they're not. And we know that COVID hit schools and the industry hard, but we've gone back to 2016 and looked at pass rates, and these schools are still performing poorly and are still accredited and receiving funds and allowing their students to get student aid, and then the students aren't passing the test. So I can tell you we're having conversations on all the levels and have been for many, many years. There's just only so much our board can do to really dig in and figure out where the root of the problem is.
So this is Member Jimenez, and I want to add, Christy started to say it, but she didn't finish the sentence. The statement was, we can tell them what to teach, but we can't tell them how to teach it. And that is part of the issue that we're having.
Yep.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other questions or follow-up?
Yeah, this is Member Rostovsky. My question is, and maybe it's out there and I just missed it, or maybe we just can't. Is there a way to like put out promotional material or educational material about like tips and tricks, perhaps, maybe like best practices for preparing to take the exam, right? And maybe that's something like, it's best to take the exam I don't know, in the language you most feel comfortable with, or maybe the, language in which we, you learned the material. I don't know, just something thinking like, you obviously can't tell them what's on the exam, but I always remember like before I would take my PSATs or SATs, right? School would be like, get a good night's sleep, drink some water, you know, chew some gum if that's how you were studying, right? Like something that could at least, I don't know, make people think a little bit more about how they're approaching the exam, right? Like anxiety, nerves, stuff like that. I don't know. Just a thought I had.
So one of the things that we're looking at with the exam vendor is expanding on what we call the Candidate Information Bulletin, the CIB, and that's what explains what the examined content is. And so they are currently looking at it. This was discussed at our meeting last week, and they are currently looking at ways they could expand that information because it's very brief. It'll say, under the content of hair coloring, it might say dye. And so what does that really entail? And so the exam vendor is looking at expanding that CIB, which I think will help. Schools should be using that as a guide on, because it tells you what percentage of each of the exam, the content area is going to be. The other things we have done is we've done town halls with the schools, where the vendor has come in and explained the exam. Those we've done virtually, and they are posted on our website as well. So we have that information. So we could try to increase our outreach to schools in letting them know, reminding them that those are there. Those, we've done it for the barber and for the cosmetology exam. So they are online. They can go back and watch them at any time. But I do think the expanding of the candidate information bulletin could be beneficial. I will tell you that at this advisory committee I was at, it also involved representative from each of the two main textbook companies. So it was a really good conversation between the testers, the regulators, and the textbook companies to see if we could come together on what maybe a model curriculum that we can recommend to schools. Because all the states are different. Ours is very broad now. Other states are very specific, and the textbooks obviously write for the entire country and some for the world, really. So we are going to be having a follow-up meeting that is going to try to pull all those groups together to try to make sure we're really on the same page of what we should be testing in these examinations.
This is Board Member
Thank you.
Isbell. I'm sorry. Did you have a
Oh, I was
follow-up?
just saying thank you.
Oh, okay. This is Board Member Isbell. We've talked about this before, specifically to English, being around the grade level of exams. And I'm curious if we are doing translations that potentially are higher level in Spanish, or if we're doing actual exams in grade level that's equal to the other grade levels in language. We've had concerns before about like whether we're using the word scissors versus shears, and there may be some issues around how people utilize the language that they use in the salon versus what we may have as a formal word in some of our texts. And so I'm sure we're looking into this. I would always be interested in making sure that the grade level for our exams is equivalent among throughout the languages that we use, and not just a translation of the English grade level.
And that came up as well in our committee meeting. And so it is something I asked for them to double check as well. I'm told the textbooks as well as the exam are at the 9th grade reading level. We had that discussion if maybe that was a little too high. And so that is definitely something that we'll be following up on at our next meeting.
Well, and it may just also be making sure that we're not using language that's not actually utilized on a daily basis by those who utilize that language. I'd like to also just make a separate note. I mentioned this last time, but I will mention it again because it's such good news. There's such high rates of people taking Chinese. And we had only just added that last year. And it makes me feel great that we did. And I appreciate all the work that everyone did in making that happen. It also causes me to think that we need to keep an eye on other languages in the future where we may be missing some people, because clearly Chinese was something that we needed to add in, and just bear that in mind. We can talk about that more in our other committees. Thanks.
This is Steve Weeks speaking. I have a question. We've been tweaking these Spanish language tests for Cosmo for months now. And today, I think we mentioned 5 or 6 ways that would also maybe help our viewpoint on that. And I hate to ask this question because it's been about a year since we reduced the number of hours necessary for the schools. When Texas did this, when the state of Texas did this, did they see a decline in their numbers immediately after reducing their hours to 1,000 hours?
I'm not, Texas, I'm not positive. I don't know the answer to that question. But I do know that we've talked with a lot of experts in the area, including our own department, Office of Examination, Professional Examinations. And it's very expected to see a dip in scores when you, well, one, when you change exams. And then of course we expected it when we saw the hours go lower. Not all the schools went to 1,000 hours. I can tell you that most did. We do have some that are doing 1,200 hours, seem to be doing pretty well. But one of the things is, you know, there is a new law out there. It's not within our wheelhouse, but there's a new federal law for gainful employment. And it's going to basically make all of our schools, it has to do with the funding for Title IV, and it's going to make all of our schools limit at the state level. So all of our schools are going to have to, if this goes through, and I believe it has gone through, but there's some lawsuits happening, all of our schools will have to go to 1,000 hours. And I do know we have quite a handful that do 1,200. And so, you know, that we'll have to watch that. We could see that have another impact. But we should have seen these scores rebound by now, I believe. So that is what has, I strongly expressed that last week at our meeting. Okay, move forward. And then also on page 7, you can see that our apprentice program scores continue to be incredibly low. We have a total pass rate for apprentices at 29%. I am working with the Department of Consumer Affairs Director, Kirchmeier, who we have been meeting regularly with the Division of Apprenticeship Standards on what we can do to combat this. You will be hearing more on this in the coming months. We just really are not seeing any improvements happening in the apprentice program. We have found even more concerns the more we look. We're finding that they are charging exorbitant amounts to these apprentices. We just found last week that many establishments, we surveyed 80 establishments, I believe, 35 establishments that impacted 85 apprentices. And how many didn't have? About 74% of those establishments that we surveyed were not carrying workers' comp, which is a requirement for the apprenticeship program. And so it's very concerning. Again, we have some limited oversight of the apprenticeship program, but it's continuing to not work for this industry. And I think we'll be putting information together. Might not be at the next board meeting, but at the following, I expect to have another report to this board on the apprentice program on how significant these issues are. We find more issues every day. I now have 4 staff that are basically spending most of their time on apprentice issues. And we are not funded for that. The apprentice application fee is $25, which we wouldn't want to make that any higher because some of them are having to pay that themselves. We recently had someone who was told to get her own workers' comp insurance. We're not sure how that even happened. But the more we dig, the more we find and the worse it gets. And so I think later in the year, we're going to try to put all this together for you and really look at what we can do to try to resolve these issues. We've been talking about it for a very long time of how bad this is. All right, moving on.
Oh, Chrissy, I believe there was a hand from member Munoz.
Sorry. Yes.
Yeah. Christy, thank you so much for that. I really commend your team for helping. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I have a feeling this board is very interested in that and will want to know. So if there's, as you give updates, if there's anything in particular we can do as a board to support, I think we're all open to hearing those options as well, or anyone we need to invite to speak with us. I think we're very open, but thank you for your work on this, Christy.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we'll go ahead and we of course have spread out the pass rates by out of country schools, school programs. I'm on page 10 now. Moving to page 11, we have our information on licenses issued for fiscal year 23-24. You can see we've been busy. And then we, of course, we compare that with the licenses issued for the last 5 years. It's never a dull moment at Barbering and Cosmetology. Our licensed population on page 12, 636,441. Moving on to page 13 of our disciplinary review committee. This has been the one unit that's been oddly slow. Those of you who have been around for a while know we're usually very backlogged in this area. So we are not right now. And that attributes to a lot of different things. It attributes to our inspectors taking a more partnership role with our establishments. It changes to the cite and fine unit who are really looking at things and say someone had an expired establishment license during the inspection, but they renewed it the same day. We don't cite them for that. And those would have been in the past a citation that would have come to DRC. So those numbers have been lowered. We're having DRC tomorrow. And so we're going to probably wipe out most of Northern California. And then in April, I believe, we have DRC for Southern California, which will probably, wipe out most of those. So then we'll figure out as they come in when we'll have our next DRC after that. All right. I believe that covers our licensing report. And we'll move on to our enforcement report. This shows our enforcement. We have 20.5 positions with 1 vacancy. That's still true? We filled that position. So we have no vacancies in enforcement. That's how fast we work at Barber Cosmo. Then we have our number of complaints received. We received 1,321 complaints in our last quarter. The next page 17, it shows you our breakdown by type. We've given you from December 2018 to 2023, so an average of the last 5 years. And then the bottom chart shows the last quarter. And then page 18, we have our enforcement statistics. We have our numbers of complaints, our application investigations, numbers of cases that have been referred to the Attorney General's office, and then the number of disciplinary processes, so all those mail votes that you all do. On the next page is a chart of our disciplinary outcomes, so what the results have been from some of our disciplinary actions, and then our final chart is our current probation standings.
Okay, Christy, I would like to pause here to take public comment. Okay, is there any public, anyone who wishes to comment there in the room?
Yes, we have 2, or yes, we have some.
Okay, wonderful.
I guess I'm worth 2. I know I'm growing. Good morning, board members. Fred Jones with the Professional Beauty Federation. The elephant in the room, Mr. Weeks briefly touched upon, is the lowering of the hair hours. SB 803 only affected barbering and cosmetology, not the other license categories. The other license categories have rebounded in their passage scores. The hair licenses have not. And we're working with schools to try to compile data. There's always bad apples in every industry sector. There's a lot of them in the apprenticeship program. Unfortunately, there's a lot in some of the ethnic schools, particularly Spanish speaking. But I'm working with the good schools, and they are struggling with their students to get them to pass the licensing exam at 1,000 hours. And we're trying to compare the 1,000-hour schools with, for example, the 1,200, the ones that's stuck with a couple hundred hours higher. And preliminarily, as Ms. Underwood said, they have better rates. So surprise, surprise, we've reduced hours, and now we have a problem with passage scores in the hair license categories. In terms of this industry and apprenticeship and it not being a good fit, 85% of this industry are independent contractors. It actually may be even more than that. It's not employee-employer-based relationships. And to do an apprenticeship, they have to be basically in an employee-based salon because they have to, one of the conditions is to have workers' compensation coverage. And you don't have to pay workers' comp for an independent contractor in your salon, which, by the way, is one of the reasons why 85% of our salons are not employee-based, because of those costs. So there's an incongruity, a natural incongruity in our industry for apprenticeship programs. That, by the way, has implications in the manicuring industry because they lost their exemption to be able to basically offer independent contractor status under AB 5, as the other sectors continue to enjoy. That was sunsetted and not extended by the legislature. We'll be talking about a bill in a few minutes, I think, that discusses that. Anyway, I just wanted to point out, though, that I don't think it should be any
15 seconds.
surprise that when you reduce hours so drastically from 1,600 to 1,000 or 1,500 to 1,000, schools, even the good schools that we work with, are struggling, and their students' test scores show
That is time.
We have one more public comment in the room.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Alexander Krajny, the Russian and Ukrainian interpreter who has some experience in interpreting of your test. Yeah. Hi again. Alexander Krajny, Russian and Ukrainian interpreter who has an experience in interpreting of the written exams for the licensees. And I would like to address Ms. Underwood's comments about the failing of the written tests, I mean the decrease in the passing scores. And I'm going to be talking about those applicants for whom the English language is not native and for whom the tests are not translated into their native language, meaning that those applicants are using the interpreters like myself. And I'm here to represent to you that a big factor, if not a major factor, of failure of those is the failure of their interpreters. Not the applicant, but the interpreter. And the reason the interpreter fails is because the interpreter comes unprepared. The interpreter does not know the terms and processes and all those complicated things. The interpreter may be experienced on only one condition, if the interpreter keeps being in this line of business. But I cannot do that because I have a law. Actually, I'm here to comment on your item number 11. But I have a 2 years barrier. I interpret in the medical setting. So the only reason I remember diagnosis and names of medications and name of procedures, not because I have medical background, because I interpreted it yesterday and the day before and the day before. The same happens in the courts where I interpret as well. So I will be talking about that during item 11. My second comment to you, ma'am, about the decreasing of the scores. I interpreted back in October for one applicant. I interpreted the written exam. My client, prior to the exam, she received the guidelines from the board, the addresses, the procedures, the dates and times, and the breakdown of the questions that she would receive in her test. It was like coloring 25%, haircutting so percent, laws and business so many percent, and nails 15%. I remember that number. I interpret the test, and it turns out that the number of the questions related to nails and manicurist profession is well about over 30%. So the person who is about to work and applies for the license of cosmetology, but
15 seconds.
she wants to work in the hairstyling only, she had to answer the question about how to remove the French tip, how many layers does she have to put on the nail, which layer has to follow which one.
Thank
So
you. That is time.
I don't really know whose fault that is, but I believe if the
Thank
board,
you for your
if the
public
board is
comment.
advising the testing center, the board has to control what testing center.
Thank you for
puts
that. Okay. Are there any other members of the public that would like to comment there in the room?
There are none in the room.
Okay, wonderful. And moderator, can we move on to members of the public that wish to comment here on WebEx?
Absolutely. We are accepting public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning before your time expires. And Barbara Brown, now is the time to raise that hand if you wish to ask your question.
Hi, my name is Barbara Brown. My question is just that, I feel like we're using, everything we're supposed to. We're using the appropriate text. We're going through that CIB right from the jump. We're trying to prepare them as much as possible. And it's just all across California, there's this drop, which is concerning. But it's almost like you guys just are lowering the pass percentage as opposed to like really digging through that test and see what's going on, which is a little bit frustrating. So my question is, as a school, how do we go forward now when we are currently doing everything you guys are suggesting? And before the change in all of this, we had a really great pass rate and it's just plummeted. And so my question is, what do we as a school do to try to improve that?
All right, thank you. And looking around, there are no other requests for comment.
Okay, thank you so much. Christy, can we continue with item number 9? Thank you.
Okay. Our next item is page 20. We're going to go into our schools inspections and site and fine report. This unit, our current number of inspectors is 21, and we only have 1 vacancy in that now. We have a lot of new inspectors out there. And in our site and fine unit, we have 12 positions, and we have 1 vacancy there as well. We currently have 264 schools. We have 31 open cases on those schools. The board received 50 cases in Q2 for fiscal year 23-24. We've listed the number of externs. As we know, we changed some of the regulations with externs back with SB 803. So we continue to monitor the number of schools and the number of establishments that are utilizing the extern program. On page 21 is our statistics for this unit, the number of citations that have been issued, and the number of inspections that have been completed. These numbers are always a little bit delayed because of how we process our work internally. So that quarter in the fiscal year 22-23 is accurate, but our 23-24 is just a little bit behind. So we're always a little bit behind in that column. And then we're providing our number of inspections. This is out of business or closed on call. Closed on call is what we call when an inspector goes out to an establishment and they're closed for the day. And these numbers have really increased since COVID. A lot of establishments are appointment only now. Establishments that used to have many employees within their facility have one or two. So if they go to lunch, they close down. So there's a lot of hit and miss for our inspectors. So that's what that number shows. And then the last chart on that page is the establishment inspections reports issued. So just another one we issue with violations or without violations. So we're seeing a lot more of no violation establishments. The next page, 22, shows our citations. This goes with, we added here the number of inspectors versus the number of inspections. That's that first little chart that you see. Obviously, we've been building up our inspections program, so we're going to start seeing those numbers get higher and higher. We were, as you all know, that have been with us for a while, the inspector positions are very hard to fill. So we're super excited that we have only one vacancy in that area right now. And then again, we just go on with our citations that have been issued based on an establishment or an individual, unlicensed establishment or an unlicensed individual. And then we have our request for payment notices. We do have 2 staff right now that are handling our request for payment notices. So they've really, really been working on cleaning up this workload. It's a huge workload, but they've been doing an amazing job at catching us up on that. And then lastly is our payment plans. So as we know, we have we allow people any citation over $500, they can request a payment plan. So there is our statistics for the payment plans. Any questions on that?
Sorry, I have a question. The question is on Cite and Find. When the inspection report comes into Cite and Find, how often does Cite and Find modify and or eliminate? Is it 10%, 5, 20%?
I can get those stats for next time. We can report that next time, but I mean, it's probably a lot. Because a lot of times, you know, when the inspector, that's for like minor violations, and especially the expired license, because they forgot, and especially the establishment license. If they forgot, they usually do it right away, so they're current. So we're not going to find, you know, it costs us more work to issue all that citation when they've come into compliance. So, but we can add that for next time. All right. We will move on to our outreach update. So as you know, we have a budget freeze right now. So our outreach in person is very limited. We did do some, we've done some virtual. Natalie and Shelby have done some virtual webinars with our Stockton high school areas. They allowed us to do it virtual. Wasn't as great as doing it in person, but we made it happen. And then, of course, before the freeze took place, we did do some in-person shows. We continue to send emails out, and we continue to post on social media. I won't go through all of our postings on social media, but you can see them. Hopefully, I think we've done a really good job. I hope you all saw our hairdos for the holidays campaign. I thought it was really good. DCA, of course, helped us with a lot of those images that we were able to use, and I'm pretty proud of that. Any questions?
Oh, I just wanted to make a comment. I really like the social media posts, and I was curious if we could do maybe some in Spanish going forward.
We can. I think we have in the past, so we'll make sure those translated right.
Thanks.
All right, moving to page
Sorry,
37.
sorry, I was making a
Rosowski?
funny joke. Yeah, I was gonna say I was just jealous I couldn't do any of the hairdos for the holidays. That's all.
We'll fit you in there next time.
Thank you. I
Facials
appreciate
for
it.
the
Maybe
holidays, right?
beard for the holidays or something.
Okay, okay. All right, on page 37, we have our legislative update. I just want to give you all a warning that we've had a busy couple of weeks. And so our agenda is a little odd this time. We have some legislative updates. We have an update from our committee, and then we have some bills that came in the middle of all of that. So we're going to talk about legislation a couple different times. What we provided you in this report is just for information, the 2024 legislative calendar and deadlines. And then an update on page 38, AB 1328, which is the Cosmetology Licensure Compact. There was an informational hearing a couple of weeks ago on compacts in general. It was with the Senate Business and Professions Committee. And so I didn't speak at that. I was asked a couple questions from the public, but it wasn't focusing just on the cosmetology compact. It was focusing on compacts in general. So somebody from the Council for State Government spoke, the department's director spoke, and then a couple of people, someone from the supporters of the cosmetology impacts compact spoke as well. So we do anticipate that this bill will have a hearing in the spring. So we will continue to watch that and see if that moves anywhere. The hearing with the Senate BNP committee, which is where this bill is at, wasn't super positive on compacts. So we'll see what happens as we move forward. You know, you never know. They got a lot of information in that hearing. But there was also public who spoke against compacts as well, not from this industry, but California is not a compact friendly state. So we knew it was a long shot. And so we'll see if how this goes in the springtime when we have a hearing.
Christy, this is Board Member Isbell. If there, I don't know, but if there are ways that our members can be of assistance in some of those conversations, do let us know.
Absolutely. SB 451, that bill is not moving forward. So this will be the last time you see that bill. And then SB 817, which was a 2-year bill, which currently has our language to clarify the hairstylist license. We're waiting to see if that bill is going to proceed as well. We anticipate that it will, so we will certainly keep you posted on that. All right, and then lastly, I believe, is our strategic plan update. I won't go through every line, but you can see that our staff, we meet on a regular basis. This is a 5-year plan. It goes to 2027. You can tab through this and see all the light green is what we've completed. And then, of course, we still have a lot to work on, but we just wanted to provide this to you at the beginning of the year so you can see that we are moving forward on our strategic plan objectives.
Thank you so much for that, Christy. I'm really impressed with the breakdown of the strategic plan just because I feel like so many times we set goals and then we don't really look at them until it's time to set new goals. And so to see that that the board is so closely tracking and really have articulated measurable standards to kind of hold ourselves against is very impressive. So thank you for that, and thank you to the staff for that. Okay, any other comments or questions from the board on this item? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So let's move on to public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment on the remaining items? So we went over items C through F from agenda item 9. So this is not an invitation to kind of comment a second time on items you've already commented on. This is to cover the remaining items under the executive management report. So are there any public comments on those items or those reports? Okay, I am not hearing anything from the room. Let's do public comment on WebEx, and then we'll take a recess.
We are open for public comment via WebEx on agenda item 9. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ... that ellipses button at the bottom in order to find your hand button. And Carly, I see that you've had your hand up for quite a while. If you have anything to say about agenda item 9, I will happily call on you. Otherwise, please put that hand down for the moment, and we'll address it probably in agenda item 19, other items not on the agenda. All right, looking around, I see no request for comment on agenda item 9. Do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. And I'm going to check in with Christy at this time. What is your recommendation for our break, Christy?
We recommend a 15-minute break.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so right now it is 10:41. Let's reconvene at 10:56. Thank you, everyone. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Are we all set in the meeting room?
We are all ready.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, let's move on to our next agenda item, discussion and possible action on proposed legislation. Christy, can you brief us?
Okay, so this is the legislation that was introduced not in time for our ledge committee. So this is the first time everyone's seen this information. So we will go through our each of these three bills. So I think we should go through them one at a time, and we should take public comment for each bill. So the first bill is AB 2412. Assemblymember Reyes has introduced this bill. This bill doesn't necessarily impact our laws and regulations, but I thought you would all find it very interesting. It creates the California Body Contouring Council, similar to the Massage Therapy Council, which is like a volunteer statewide certification. This is been proposed for a similar type of structure, but for body contouring. So we all know the high amounts of body contouring that are done in this industry. We still continue to find it every single day. And so we thought that we would bring this to the board. We aren't recommending any type of position on this bill. We think we should watch it. Again, it doesn't necessarily, does not impact any of our laws and regulations, but it would greatly impact our licensees. We consider body contouring the practice of medicine. It has been discussed at many levels within the department and other allied health boards who believe this also is the practice of medicine. I do know that other states are also looking to try to allow estheticians to perform this services because it is so popular right now with estheticians performing this type of service. So it's open to discussion for the members.
This is Board Member Isbell. Do we have, if we do just do a watch position, do we have the ability to enter into the record for the legislation our concerns around the practice of medicine and how it's been impacting some of our licensees?
Yes, we could provide that information to the author's office on what we've experienced with in our disciplinary review committee. I can provide that information.
Do we need a motion for a watch?
Sabina, do you feel we need do we need a motion to watch?
Sorry, not necessarily. The board will always be watching bills and bring it back to your attention if something does change and maybe it gets amended or something like that. But it may be if you want something specific to go in that letter, if you want the board to send a letter, then you can go ahead and do something like that.
I would move that we send a letter to the author regarding the concerns we've had in DRC regarding the practice of medicine.
Thank you for that, member as well. Can I just ask for a little bit more discussion before just so we can clarify what content of the letter, if there's anything else that we want to add to it?
Sure.
So can we just hold off on a second for now? Okay, I haven't seen what the text of the bill. Christy, are there any mechanisms for cooperation or communication between this proposed new board and ours? In that, so the scenario I'm imagining is when we do our inspections and we find, these machines, or we find our licensees with items that would be under this new board's purview, is there any contemplation of what we're going to do about that? Do we make a referral or, anything like that?
At this point, we've not communicated at all with either the author's office or who may be sponsoring the bill. So that's definitely something that we can look into.
Okay, absolutely. And if we're contemplating sending a letter, that would be something I would want included in there because it's our inspectors who are out there in the field who are going to be observing this. And I can't imagine that when they start off brand new, that their ability to kind of discover or regulate is going to be as robust as ours, given our infrastructure that we've already built. And so I would definitely want to see them recognize the reality of that and then create some kind of streamlined way for us to communicate that information. Okay, any other members with questions or comments or thoughts on this item?
This is Steve Weeks. I have just a quick comment. I noticed in the legislation, our licensed term cosmetologist is used throughout this. A cosmetologist must be on the board of directors. A cosmetologist must be on the advisory board. I just worry that there's going to be some confusion with our inspectors when this go out, with people saying, well, a cosmetologist is the
Agreed.
license to have to do this. So we may expect something like that to happen.
I agree.
This is Member Funk. I agree, and I think it should be amended to say esthetician.
My comment to all of that would be, should it include the words cosmetologist or esthetician, since cosmetologists and estheticians can't perform that service right now?
Yes, I agree with that, Christy. I think it should be its own word. Contour artist, I don't know, something that just makes it clear that it's not one of our, because there will absolutely be confusion there. And cosmetologist obviously has its own legal implications, its own definition, so they should not be using the same word if they do not mean the same.
This is Board Member Isbell, and I'd like to add that to any potential letter that we would send.
Okay, any further comments from our board members?
Quick question from board member Megan Ellis. Would that require an opposed unless an amended stance if we were to take that position that we wanted to remove cosmetologist?
I mean, it's the decision of the board if they choose to actually oppose this bill. I think we can continue to watch the bill and provide feedback on the bill.
Member Funk here. Yeah, I think we would like we have some contingencies if we would like to back this bill, and that would be some verbiage oversight and otherwise. So we should start the letter and the discussion process and see if we can have some amendments made before it moves forward.
Okay, and I see that Member Munoz has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I have questions about, but maybe down the line when they're going to create the ability to practice body contouring. I know they're going to make a curriculum and everything, but maybe in our legislative committee, this could be on your watch. And if you all want to propose anything, we could put in a letter and then bring it back to us, just for streamlining time, maybe just for that committee to be watching this.
Thank you, Member Munoz. I know that the legislative committee would have loved to look at it if not for the timing. My thought in response to Member Funk's comment or about whether we need to oppose, my thought is I apologize if I missed it, but I didn't see the actual text of any bill, so I wouldn't want to take an actual position until we actually see how they flesh out the details. But I absolutely would agree that we should communicate our concerns and our recommendations. If there are no other comments, Member Isbell already made a motion to prepare a letter. Christy, are you clear on what the contents of the letter should be, or would you like us to discuss further?
So I believe that within the motion, we will prepare a letter that will include our information on how we review this as the practice of medicine, also our inspections process and how we see this firsthand, as well as the concern with the wording of calling out cosmetology.
You're a wonderful note taker. That's exactly it. Okay, does that cover it? Any members wanted something else possibly included in that letter?
And the only other thing would be a possibly proposed name of a contouring operator, that they would have their own title.
And okay, and Member Isbell, are you okay with including those in your motion?
Yes, please. And I am in my motion to that language we've discussed here. Thank you.
Okay, and do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, that sounds like Member Ellis. Great. Okay, can we move on to public comment? Are there any members of the public that would like to comment there in the room?
I see no members.
Okay, all right. Moderator, can we open for public comment here on WebEx?
We are open for public comment on 2412 body contouring. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. And our mobile device users, you may need to hit that ... the ellipses button at the bottom of your screen in order to find your hand button. We're going to take just a couple of seconds to see if we have a request for comment, and then we'll move on to the next one. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Would you like to continue with the agenda, or the motion, rather?
Yes, please. Okay, may we call a vote?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you for that. All right, Christy.
All right. First, I would like to apologize that we actually added the text for each of these bills as a link when we sent the electronic versions. But I'm feeling that that wasn't noticed, so I apologize, and we'll make sure we add these actual bills to the next agenda packet. We will move on to AB 2444, which was introduced on February 13th by Assemblymember Lee. This bill requires a basic labor laws to include, it adds to the definition of basic labor laws to include the right to sick pay. The bill, as of January 1, 2026, would require our board to require all board licensed establishment owners to view a video on basic labor laws as a condition of receiving their license renewal. It would also require us to work with the Department of Industrial Relations by July 1, 2025, to disseminate a notification to all board licensed establishments and licensed manicurists that includes specific statements to inform those licensees of a change in the law relating to the employment classification of manicurists and of the legal consequences of employment classification as an employee or misclassification of a worker. And the bill also requires the board, in consultation with the Department of Industrial Relations, excuse me, and community-based organizations to develop language appropriate and culturally appropriate educational video or videos on basic labor laws, and to post that video or videos on the board's internet website or other accessible platforms. So we've provided an analysis of this bill in our handouts. I will note the discussion points is the board's responsibility to be creating the media on labor laws, or should this responsibility be solely with the department that regulates labor laws? An individual establishment holder can be a solo suite, like a Sola Salon, Phoenix Salons. So we do not license establishments based on what services are done there. So this bill would impact all of our licensees, and that would include any of those solo individuals who have an establishment license that would never have a employee or employee-based relationship. We're not able to determine how many establishments are employee or employer-based. We do a survey, but a lot of people don't answer that survey. And then the board cannot absorb any additional workload that would be required to process these renewals that would change our processing of our renewal application process, which today is completely automated. The fiscal impact would be substantial to this. We would obviously have to modify Breeze to handle a notification. If somebody were to not complete the educational course, we would have to somehow flag that in Breeze, and then they would have to get a deficiency letter, and then staff would then have to process that manually. The automated process for a renewal can only happen once at the beginning. So if somebody is deficient in not doing that education, it becomes a manual process, basically. We would need to do regulations. We would need to do the video development. We have not put a dollar amount on the fiscal impact, just that we do know that this would be substantial. And then that is what we have for the discussion for the board members today.
This is Steve Weeks. I just have a real quick question. I think your discussion points that you mentioned in reviewing this are good, but I think it's that first point you mentioned as who really has the primary responsibility of educating people on labor laws, and it's EDD, not us. They're capable of doing it. They know how to do it well. They've got everything it takes to do this. It's sending us in a different direction of compliance that would be difficult for us to do and would add greatly to our budget and staffing.
We do believe we would need substantial staffing. We are working on a fiscal analysis on this right now. And I do want to say that I believe you'll hear during public comment, we have people who may know a little bit more about this than myself. But I do agree that the intent is good. We need to, we do see that people are, for lack of a better word, being taken advantage of in an employer-employee based situation. We know we have labor trafficking in this industry, so I think the intent is good. I'm just not sure how we can implement it given our current resources.
This is Member Isbell. Do we oversee any kind of in a similar fashion, do we oversee any kind of business licensing with the cities or counties that they're in for an establishment?
We do not. When we issue an establishment license, we do ask to see their business license. Is that correct? However, it's not a requirement of our establishment license. We like to ask for that because it helps us to determine if somebody else was in that location before. But it's not a requirement of licensure. So an establishment license is just a $50 application fee and complete the application form.
Is there a state board that is involved in oversight of those?
Of a business license?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, it's local, city, or county.
I'm just wondering, the idea of adding on to our work, the oversight of labor laws, um, uh, it doesn't sound like we have oversight of business laws. And so I wouldn't want to start a situation where we have oversight of labor and then another bill comes along and they want oversight of business laws, particularly since they are city and county. But and frankly, uh, labor law, there are many, many nuances to labor law within cities and counties, beyond just the statewide one. And I would be worried about getting into a lot of thicket of the weeds of legislation throughout. With all that said, I would move to oppose this legislation.
And
Second.
And another quick comment, we do have our health and safety course that the board has developed. The Health and Safety Committee is currently looking at updating this. And it is required for every school to teach, but it's not part of the licensure examination. So obviously the licensure examination is testing for minimal competency in the industry. Our health and safety course that we do have does have a section on basic labor laws that we have provided in that. And we provide that course to all of our schools and it is required for them to teach it, but it's not tested.
And I would also like to add that this is no reflection on the board's position related to business or labor. This is more a reflection of our duties as a board in relation to providing oversight to legal issues for our businesses.
This is President Pham. I would agree with Member Isbell's comments. I would have a question. Christy, are there any examples, or are there any other boards that have are there any like kind of analogs, or does this exist anywhere else for any other board? Because I would be hesitant to support something that would be a completely new undertaking that is so kind of beyond our scope and our area of expertise. And so I'm just wondering, has anyone tried this? Or is this a completely new suggestion that hasn't been actually, because, there's so many things involved with implementation. So that's my question. I apologize. Go ahead.
I am not positive if any other board has done this. I have worked at several boards in the past, but it's been a long time. And no one, I wouldn't want to speak for any other boards, but that's something we could look at and bring back at the next board meeting for sure.
Okay, do we have any other comments or questions from board members? I did hear Member Isbell move, and I didn't hear who made the second.
Mr. Weeks.
Mr. Weeks. Okay, so Member Weeks seconded, and the motion would be to oppose this legislation as currently written. Are there any other comments or questions from the board before we move to public comment? No? Okay.
Sorry. This is Board Member Ellis. I have a quick question. Would it be? I agree with sort of the intent of the legislation. Could we say oppose unless amended as to say that perhaps EDD and DIR would be required to consult with us, maybe as to best practices for communication, but not put the onus back on us to mandate that this is a part of getting your establishment license, and put that more on EDD and DIR?
Well, the bill currently does have us collaborating with DIR, with the labor office
Mhm.
on how the content of this.
Mhm.
But it does require, I mean, there's, it's adding it to their renewal license would help ensure that they actually have it. I'm not sure if DIR or EDD of their processes on how they could guarantee that someone.
Right. Actually view the video. Got it.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Member Munoz?
Yes, thank you. Christy, as part of the current like renewal process, is it just simply paying the renewal fees?
It's paying the renewal fee, and there is a survey on the renewal, but it goes through what we call our remittance processor. And so it's very highly automated. If someone has lost their renewal notice, then we might have to do a manual process for those. Very high volume or online, and we don't even see these renewals. They come in and go out the
Yep.
same day.
Yeah, I was just thinking about maybe language for them about, I think I did see there about funding, but also somehow if we could use any existing structures that we have, if we were to do it, because or cross-reporting if because there's other things too that are outside of our scope, like medical procedures, right? That there's another board that may do that. So I hear what everyone's saying. I also am very mindful of what they were saying. The reason they want to make this law is because they do these seminars, but they're usually live events. They're full capacity. So they're just trying to make it more accessible. And then it's kind of an existing, I mean, there's precedents. I know for myself as a board of behavioral sciences, we have to do a whole thing. When we renew our license, we have to do law and ethics exam. So if there's any way to collaborate with other boards that are already adding in additional elements, they may have some ideas of how they're using Breeze, because there's a whole process for licensed clinicians to renew. And I'm just seeing this as like one video. So I feel like it's doable.
Oh, it's absolutely doable. It's just doable with resources and staff time. But it's absolutely doable. We don't have continuing education currently. This, for lack of a better term, is continuing education. Most allied health boards have continuing education already.
Hi, this is
Oh,
Member
sorry, go ahead.
Kavanaugh. And I just wanted the discussion point about individual establishment owner, like since I'm an industry member, I don't have employees, I'm an independent contractor, and a majority of us in the industry are. So a lot of having a video on labor rights for employees would be pointless for us to take it. So it would just be an extra added thing. Like if we were going to do continuing education, I would probably be more health and safety as opposed to doing labor laws for most of us who don't have employees. So just my comment.
This is Member Rostovsky, kind of to Member Munoz's point, but it also makes me think to an earlier point. I can't remember who said it, but like, how do we even know if they're the ones who are taking the continuing education? Because I'm just thinking like, when I have to renew for BBS, they don't make you send in anything. Like it's just, did you do it? Yes, no. And then are you audited? Then you'll see your certificates, but that could be like 10 years from now. So I don't know. I always get iffy when it comes to any type of education that's not like someone's not in person or someone's not being viewed taking it. So that's just my 2 cents. That Dana made me think about that when she said that. I was like, wait, but how are we actually proving someone is doing this stuff? But also to the point of why take it if you don't need it. So I don't know. I think there's still too much confusion about it.
Thank you, Member Ostowski. Yes, your comment, and from Member Kavanaugh, I think we're all very sympathetic to what the goal is. I think the concern, it sounds like that's coming across, is the cost and what it would require from our board versus what is going to come of it, given our population, our population, if it is true, or given the fact that it is mostly individual contractors, and so what it would require from us and our staff versus how many establishment members, owners that we would actually reach who are actually watching the video. I'm not sure if that is so clear cut. Okay, so let's move on to public comment that might inform more of our conversation. So again, at this time, it sounds like we still have a motion on the table. We have a second from Member Weeks. And are we okay with moving to public comment at this time? Great. Okay. Christy, I think you mentioned that there are members of the public in person.
Yes.
Comment? Yes.
One of these. The second microphone, this one. Hello, my name is Catherine Porter. I'm the Senior Policy Consultant with the California Healthy Nail Salon Collaborative. We're a statewide organization that's been in existence for about 18 years. We've done a lot of work with Christy and appreciate all these years her working with us and working on translating and expanding a lot of the resources. So we appreciate the ongoing relationship that we've had. Our organization is a co-sponsor of AB 2444, along with Asian Americans Advancing Justice, Southern California. So our two organizations, nonprofits, are working with Assemblymember Lee. Our organization works with nail salon workers and owners, many of whom, as you probably know, are Vietnamese first language speakers. I appreciate the conversation that's taken place so far on this bill. So I want to emphasize a few things, though. One is that there are essentially two parts to this bill. One is the video viewing requirement that would sit in the BBC as a requirement for licensure and renewal. One reason that we have that sitting in the BBC is that the BBC is the agency that has the relationship with with salon owners and workers. DIR does not have that relationship. And so we also know that in the past, BBC has taken on some of the work of educating on labor issues. As Christy mentioned, there is a section in the curriculum that's required to speak to the issue of basic labor law. There's also a question in the application that says, ask for people to affirm that they understand basic labor law, and they have to sign that. So basic labor law is not a stranger to BBC, and we feel very fortunate that Christy and the BBC has been willing to take that on via legislation. We also, there's a second part of the bill that would require a notification be sent out to manicurists and establishment owners about the change in law beginning in January 2025 around AB 5, who's an employee and who's an independent contractor.
15 seconds.
And we think truly that's all the time. So that law, we think, if done via text, would probably not
Thank you
cost
for this time.
more than $90,000 or $100,000. If I can just say one last thing, I would encourage this board not to take an opposition position at this point. There's lots of times in the legislative session for our organizations, for the author's office, for the board.
Thank you, that is time.
For committee staff to meet and work out some details to see how this can better work for the BBC. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, are there any other members of the public who would like to comment on this item?
Yes, Madam President, this is Fred Jones again with the Professional Beauty Federation. Thank you. The meat of this bill is dealing with the exemption to Assembly Bill 5, which manicurists lost last year. Senator Nguyen had a bill that did not move forward last year, SB 451, which would have extended that exemption to manicurists, which the hair and skin license categories currently and indefinitely enjoy. But manicurists, there was a sunset date placed in there. I won't go into the details why. That sunset date came and gone. But this is anything but basic labor law. This started in 2018 with the unanimous California Supreme Court decision Dynamex, which created a three-part ABC test to determine whether someone's an independent contractor or employee. As an attorney and as an industry advocate, I could tell you almost nobody in our industry would pass that test if they were claiming their workers were independent contractors. But because of work of my association, we were able to get an exemption to the ABC test written into Assembly Bill 5 for all of our license categories. The author of AB 5, though, put that sunset for manicurists because she was concerned about that sector. And again, that sunset has since expired without that exemption being extended. I don't see how the board could communicate or convey these very complicated legal history and criteria to an industry that's 70+% foreign born, or at least foreign speaking as their primary language. That's why as an industry association, we support the ongoing exemption and to treat manicurists the same as hair and skin professionals. Short of that, it's going to be ruinous to the nail industry if overnight every one of these techs are now considered employees, which is essentially what would happen under the ABC test. And also, private attorneys can represent all of these workers, and those litigation costs are considerable. And in fact, the law allows attorneys to seek and get awarded their attorney's fees if they're successful. So we think the answer, while the intent behind this is great to educate,
15 seconds.
we think the better answer, the more realistic answer, is to ask the legislature to extend the exemption to nail professionals, just like are given to hair and skin. Thank you.
Okay. Any other members there in person or members of the public in person who wish to comment on this item?
Good morning. This is Jamie Schrabeck, Precision Nails, licensed manicurist and salon owner. Our inoperative date is January 1st, 2025. We have not lost the exemption yet. And I will agree with Fred Jones that we should never lose this exemption. We should be considered the same as all the other license types covered by the BBC currently. And while this bill is admirable in that it would try to educate salon owners about labor laws, there are too many issues in this bill. I would rather this bill be one that got rid of that sunset date altogether. I wish it took on the mantle of SB 451, which has since died. But we got the extension to 2025 in AB 5061, which was passed in 2021. And we should want to extend the same rights to everyone in this industry to work for themselves. And as far as burdening salon owners who work alone, which I am one of those right now, I don't have employees anymore, we're already burdened by AB 2437 to have a required workplace posting about labor laws. Even when we work alone, we're required to have that poster in our salon. So I do agree that the board should take an opposed position. This is just too complicated. I do like the idea of continuing education. I do like the idea of information coming directly from the board that licensees, particularly salon owners, who many of whom are not licensed as individuals at all, they are coming into this industry with no understanding of what it is to be a licensee, but they are taking on the responsibility of workers without actually being accountable. Thank you.
We have no more public comment in the room.
Thank you, Christy. Moderator, may we open public comment on WebEx?
Absolutely. We are accepting public comment via WebEx on AB 2444. We have a motion and a second. If you would like to make a comment, raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise your hand. And mobile device users hit that ... button to find your hand button on a different page. We're going to take just a couple of seconds to look around, see if we have a request for comment, and then we're going to move back to the motion. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. Okay, at this time, may we have a roll call vote?
Hallie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Abstain.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone, for that very thoughtful discussion. Chrissy, can we move on to the next item?
Yes, the next bill is SB 1084, authored by Senator Nguyen, introduced on February 12th, 2024. This is a substantial bill that would repeal certain provisions in our statutes. It repeals the hairstylist license. It also removes the practices of shampooing, arranging, dressing, curling, waving, cleansing, from beautifying, from barbering, cosmetology. So we view this as a partial deregulation bill. We are recommending an opposed position on this bill. One, it eliminates our brand new license that we just implemented. And it also it takes away some of the scope of practice of our cosmetologists and our barbers. This would bump us out of being able to offer the current, any current examination. We would have to become state specific. And so we would be going back to developing our own examinations, which are very costly. We have not, again, because of the timing of this bill, we have not put together a full fiscal impact. However, it would obviously, as I mentioned, require us to develop new examinations. We would have to do updates to our Breeze system. We would have to update all of our publications, develop regulations, and update our website and our forms. Again, we would likely lose reciprocity with other states. Our individuals would not be able to transfer their licenses going to other states, nor would we allow them to, well, we might allow them to transfer in. But we see this as being very significant, and we recommend an opposed position.
Thank you, Chrissy. Comments, questions from board members?
I have just a quick comment. This would be, obviously, we could dismiss half our board right now because half of what we do would suddenly disappear. And the good we do for public health and safety would also disappear overnight. So this is something that I think we should absolutely oppose, and I would move that we oppose this.
Thank you, Member Weeks. I'm going to pause on a second. I just want to get a little more discussion for, and then I'll ask for a second. Okay, I believe Member Rostovsky, you were about to make a comment.
Oh yeah, my curiosity is like the point of it, like what has started, like what's the point of it?
We have reached out to the author's office, but have not had a discussion with them yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and Member Munoz, your hand is up.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if there was like a history or some context for this additionally, but if we don't have it.
Correct.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions from other board members? Okay, I don't see any. Okay, and Member Weeks has moved to adopt an opposed position for this bill. Do we have a second?
This is Member Kavanaugh. I second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's move on to public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment in the room?
Yes, there are.
Thank you, Madam President. This is Fred Jones, Professional Beauty Federation. Mr. Weeks, we second your position wholeheartedly. I have spoken with the author's office. I have spoken with the sponsors. The sponsors is a libertarian think tank. They sponsored a bill about 5 years ago. Senator Morrell had a almost identical bill, but that predated the hairstylist license. So that's the only exception. But it was going to exempt hairstyling services from the cosmetology and barbering licenses. That bill passed the Senate, and we were only able to stop it in the Assembly. So there are some influential staff and other interests that still work in the Senate that support this movement toward delicensure of our industry. And make no mistake about it, this is about delicensure. We just created a 600-hour hairstylist license to lower the barriers to entry. That's the argument. And as we have just started it, I think there's only 16 people in the state that have that license now. They want to just completely do away with it. So again, it's up. We can see it. This is about delicensure. And I hope, as opposed to the Senator Morrell bill of 5 or 6 years ago, my industry association, along with your united opposition, will be able to nip this in the bud in the Senate, not allow it to get through that House again. This is incredibly problematic. So with that, we support the motion. Thank you.
We have no more public comment in the room.
Thank you. Moderator, may we move to public comment here on WebEx?
If you would like to make a comment on the motion for SB 1084, please raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. For our mobile device users, you may need to hit the ... button at the bottom of the screen in order to find the appropriate page. And we're going to take just a few more seconds to see if anyone has a request for comment. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. May we have a roll call vote?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you for that. Right, moving on to item 11, discussion and possible action regarding interpreters for the licensing exam. Christy?
Thank you. So within your packet, we have the information on interpreters for what licensing exams. Our current regulation states that a person shall only be allowed to act as an interpreter for once every 2 years. This was brought up at a previous meeting as well as here again today. We did some research and we checked with our exam vendor, as well as we checked with the California Contractor State Licensing Board, and they allow an interpreter to act after only 1 year. Our exam vendor agrees that their limitations, they follow whatever rules our board has, but they believe 1 year is sufficient. So this is a proposal to the board to modify those regulations if they so choose, that would change that 2 years to 1 year. We would like the board to discuss that, and if you choose to do that, we would bring back at that regulatory change at the next board meeting for a formal approval.
Are there any members who would like to comment or ask any clarifying questions?
This clarifying maybe. This is Steve Weeks. The question I have is, my assumption is that there's a restriction on time frame for fear of fraud.
Yes.
Someone could say that they're coaching someone in a different language in which our testing people would not know, and they're actually giving them the answers. So that's a concern. And I assume that's happened multiple times.
Yes.
Member Rostovsky?
Yeah, that was my question too, but just a refresher question. How does the test cycle in question, like similar to like the VBS, they cycle their test every so months. Does that happen, or is the test kind of stay the same?
No, basically no test is the same. Questions are scrambled, different questions come in and come out pretty regularly for our board because we test every single day. They make those changes.
Great, thank you.
Any other board member comments or questions? My thought on this is I think like with so many things we have to consider, there's kind of a balancing that goes on. I think that the balance between the risk of fraud versus the need for language access, I would be in favor of changing our requirement to 1 year, given that this 1 year is the exam vendor didn't see any issues with it, and other boards have used the 1 year requirement as well. I think if we have an opportunity to, especially given our discussion about the passage rates, if there's an opportunity to kind of help people understand the exam a little better, and the risk of fraud, I think if it's just a one person, one time a year, we're not greatly increasing the opportunity for fraud. But the flip side, the benefit of language access, I think weighs heavier in this scenario to me. And so I would be in favor of changing the regulation to allow interpretation after 1 year instead of 2. Member Munoz?
Yeah, just a technical question. So right now it's just that you can interpret for one exam every 2 years. And this would be, go ahead.
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. This would just go down to 1 year. So every year you're able to have a new opportunity.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Any other feelings from board members? I'm not, Sabina, can you remind me, am I allowed to make motions or does it need to come from someone else?
You're absolutely available to make motions.
Okay, great. And what kind of motion would be, what would be the language of the motion? I'm a little unclear. Is it to change the regulations to permit interpretation or interpreters to serve once every year versus once every 2 years?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. However you see fit, and the board will go ahead and work that up in a regulatory proposal and bring it back to the board.
Okay, well then that's my motion. I welcome any other discussion, and if not, a second. I invite a
Before we move on,
Yes.
we do have our regulations council in the room, which is in addition to Sabina. We have Christy Shields. Christy, did you want to make a comment? Right.
So I guess I'm a little perplexed because we have SB 803 cleanup regulation on the agenda, and it has 931 in that meeting materials. You see what I'm saying? So, and you're saying 931G says 2 years? Because I have 1 year in the meeting materials. Are you talking about, oh, current G? So the current D, so if you look at page 5 of the meeting materials on the agenda item 18, it says a person shall be allowed to act as an interpreter only once in 2 years in any examination. That regulation's currently on the agenda. So I guess the question for me would be, do we want to make that change now? And then we'd modify the text and send it out, but would slow down the current regulation changes. So
would that mean that we would make that change at our later agenda item when we look at the?
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I guess if the board
Or you could
agrees-
do it separately and just go forward with this proposal and then make that change later, but it's up to you.
Okay.
Really.
That would delay our SB 803 regulations.
It would delay the cleanup. So we could do it separately in which case, in this item, you could say that you would like it to be added to a future agenda item and to direct staff to prepare text to change section 931's, well, yeah, it would be D at the time we get to it, but current G, 931 subsection G, to reduce the 2-year requirement to 1 year and to bring that text back to a future board meeting for action.
And I would recommend we do it separately. Our SB 803 regs have taken us quite some time. We need to get those through.
I absolutely agree that we should push forward with our existing regulations, so I don't have an issue with handling it separately. Would we need a motion if that's the case, if we just want to bring it back on a future agenda?
I would like a motion just because I'd like it to be on the record as a policy that you're pursuing, that we have been authorized to prepare on your behalf because you're the rulemaking body, not us. So you wouldn't mind.
Okay, so then my motion will be to prepare a regulation or prepare new regulations to reflect. Sorry, I didn't pre-write this. The change in rules for interpreters so that they can interpret after 1 year instead of 2. We can do so. I would ask that the board or the staff prepare those proposed regulations and bring it back as a future agenda item. Did that cover it?
I mean, that works for me.
Yep. Okay, great.
I
Do we have
second.
discussion? Okay,
Danielle
great.
Munoz seconds.
Great. So I have a second from Member Munoz. Let's move on to public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment in the room?
Yes, we do.
Wonderful.
Microphone is off, but you
The green button was from that other side that I didn't see it. Alexander Krajny, Russian interpreter and a fraudster. I'm just following the sentiments, the logics that already was sounded in this room. I sat here last session in July and I observed item number 1 when you had a hearing about a revoked license of one individual. And you spent about 40 minutes digging into his life, into his offense, into his license. You really dig in. You ask him about his trips to the Philippines, about his fines, about his business. Right now, we are talking about licenses of dozens, if not hundreds, of your professionals. And it's been what? 8 minutes, 50 seconds. As some people from some ethnicities would say, I don't see no digging. The most of the discussion here during these 8 minutes was about making it 2 years or 1 year, without digging deep into the rationale, reasoning of why 2 years, why 1 year, why 1 year will reduce the fraud or eliminate it, and whether it will ever reduce the fraud. So you are playing numbers instead of going deeper into the reason why this restriction ever happens and what good or bad it will make for the business. I can't kick the feeling that I'm not using the word we because I can't say for all of us, I'm considered an opponent of your organization, whereas I'm trying to be part of your team and assistant for hundreds of people to get their licenses well deserved. And I don't understand what kind of threat do you see? Sir, sir and ma'am, you mentioned fraud. Do you know what kind of frauds happens during the exams? Have you ever been, any one of you, have you ever sat in the room with the interpreter during the licensing examination process? Have you ever seen what kind of environment the interpreter is operating in? Have you seen a monitor person sitting few feet away from you, watching your every mouth, watching your every hand movement? Last time I interpreted for the examination, I had to warn the monitor that I'm going to rub my nose. That was
15
itching,
seconds.
because it could have been construed as prompting or coaching. So I still maintain, and I'm ready to prove, which I already did in my first letter to you, that this rule, whether it is
Thank
2
you. That
years,
is
1
time.
year, or 1 day, is redundant. It's not necessary, and it is not
That is 3 minutes.
useful for this whole business.
Thank you for your comment. Is there anyone else in the room who would like to comment?
There's no one in the room.
Thank you. Moderator, can we move to public comment on WebEx?
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. If you're a mobile device user, you may need to hit the ... button at the bottom of your screen in order to find that hand button. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment before moving forward. And once again, this is on agenda item 11. It is specifically about the motion. Looking around, I see no request for public comment. Do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, thank you. May we have a roll call vote?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, I am told that we do need to take a lunch break. It's 11:56. Let's come back at 12:45 promptly. We do have a very long agenda today, and I'm hoping to get everyone out sooner rather than later. So we'll see everyone back at 12:45. Thank you. Oh, wonderful. Okay, Christy, do we have everyone back?
We're just missing Tamika.
Okay, all right. Okay, let's get started. We left off on item number 12, committee reports, starting off with the licensee and examination committee meeting. Steve Weeks, member Weeks, are we ready?
Steve Weeks is ready, yes. Well, the committee met on 2 occasions prior to this meeting today. And we had a substantial discussion both on renters and how they should be treated during an inspection, and also more information on what else did we discuss? Renters and licensed establishments by ownership types. The up to this point, LLCs, limited liability companies, were not included in our regulations. So we've drafted some language here. Staff has drafted language here. So I'm going to turn it over to Christy because we have got a couple of things for the board to vote on.
All right, so the first item is adding limited liability companies into our statute, Business and Professions Code Section 7347. The committee had previously discussed this. It currently is not spelled out that limited liability companies can hold an establishment license. And this is a very common business structure in this industry. So this would be a legislative proposal that if the board chooses to make a motion, what we would need is the board to make a motion to pursue the above language for consideration as a legislative proposal. So that would be the motion we would need to amend section 7347 to add limited liability companies.
I move to add limited liability to the verbiage.
Okay, that was a motion from member Funk. Do we have a second?
Board Member Ellis seconded.
I'd like to
Thank you.
clarify. This is Sabina. I'd like to clarify. We're talking about section 7347 of the Business and Professions Code.
Thank you, Sabina. Okay, any further discussion or questions from the board? Okay, can we move on to public comment? Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item in the room? Christy?
I have no one in the room.
Great. Moderator, can we open public comment here on WebEx?
We are accepting public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment on agenda item 12, the motion specifically, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users, please dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And as a reminder to our mobile device users, you have a few different pages to look at, and only one of them has that hand button. So tap that ... the ellipses button at the bottom to find it. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for comment. Seeing no request for comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, may we have a roll call vote, please?
Allie Mae Sam,
Yes?
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, within this, we have another another item from the licensing committee, and this is on license certifications. Staff brought this issue to the committee and they are recommending it coming to the full board. This is for when a individual becomes licensed or is asking for reciprocity from another state. We would like to put a timeline on how long we hold those certifications. And we are recommending that we have a time frame of, I believe, 90 days. So when a person applies who is licensed in another state, they must submit a certification to us to show that their license is valid. And what we're finding is that people submit those certifications long before they even apply to have that license actually issued in California. And so what we have is a very high volume of certification letters that we are storing in our system waiting for somebody to apply for. And then we really want to make sure that when we issue that license that they have an actual valid license. And one of the things that the certification shows is that there are no disciplinary actions against that license. So we believe a 3-month time frame is sufficient. Just based on how we do our current workload, we're seeing that pretty much covers everybody. Our processing times can range in that for how we issue. And we think that the 3 months will allow us to make sure that that license is valid with no disciplinary actions. So this language that we have added to page 2 of this agenda item. So we're asking the board to make a motion to approve the proposed regulatory text for section 911 and direct staff to submit the text to the director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and Business and Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period, and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulation of section 911 as noticed.
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you, Member Weeks, for making the motion. Do we have a second?
Munoz seconds.
Thank you. Any further discussion or questions from the board? Okay, seeing none. Let's move to public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to comment there in the room?
I have no members of the public commenting here.
Thank you. Moderator, may we open public comment here on WebEx?
We are once again open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the agenda?
Yes, thank you. May we have a vote, please?
I think there's another comment.
Oh, yes. Is there a public comment or a comment from?
Regulations Council for the board. I haven't seen this text before, so if there are legal issues, and there may not be, I would ask if the board wouldn't mind building into their motion that unless legal has issues with the text that need to be further reviewed by the board, in case there are, so that we can address those issues before and noticing the text for public comment.
Okay, can we amend the motion to reflect that?
Yeah, this is something you absolutely can amend that. It's just kind of a nice safeguard. So so you don't have to waste a little, or potentially waste time, air quote, waste time. So it's built into that motion. So
Great.
when she takes a look at it.
That'd be fine.
Great, thank you.
Great. Okay, so are we ready for a vote now?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, and thank you for DCA Regulations Council being present today. It helps to have us do the correct thing and the best thing the first time, so we appreciate that. All right, let's move on to agenda item number 13, report on the September 11th, 2023 Education and Outreach Committee meeting. And I believe Member Fairley isn't here, so Christy, do you have the update?
Sure. So the committee met on September 11th, 2023. We discussed our new scope of practice publications, and those are still getting very rave reviews. We also talked about recommendations that the committee made to staff on trying to promote some of the do's and don'ts, and suggested making some Instagram reels. Did you all see that we did a reel recently? Yeah. It was very good. And I actually was super surprised when I saw it. So I was like super happy that we've crossed a line. That we are working, well, this was of course before the holidays, but we had an update that we worked with our hairdos for the holidays, our outreach plan. So there was no action items from this committee, so it was just an update.
Thank you, Christy. Do we need to pause for public comment? Let's just do it anyway, just in case. Okay, are there any members of the public who would like to comment on that report from Christy?
No members in the room.
Okay. And moderator, can we open for public comment on WebEx?
We are open for agenda item 13. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users, dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, please hit that dot at the bottom of the screen if you are having trouble finding that hand. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment before moving forward. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 14, report on September 11th, 2023 and January 22nd, 2024 Enforcement and Inspection Committee meetings. I will turn it over to Chair Danielle Munoz.
All right, thank you. So the Enforcement and Inspections Committee met on September 11th, 2023 and January 22nd, 2024, and discussed the criteria for citing practice of medicine, educate consumers on the licensee's scope of practice. The committee discussed new school enforcement website, and I will defer to Christy to provide the rest of the information.
Sure. So again, as mentioned, we had a discussion about what we talked about earlier, body slimming, body contouring, and the understanding that we are citing this as practice of medicine. And we also talked about how we can educate consumers more. So staff is looking into that and trying to get the word out to consumers about these types of services. And then we've listed in your packets here the new website that or not new website, but a new portion of our website where we are adding a new school enforcement webpage. Our board hasn't historically done a lot of enforcement action with schools because, as I stated earlier, we don't have a lot of authority, but we did have one action that we did take against a school that we were successful on. And so we perhaps might have more. So we wanted to make sure that we are publicly noticing that. So that is what that website is intended for. And there was no action requested by the committee.
Okay, thank you. Let's provide an opportunity for public comment on item 14. Are there any members of the public who would like to comment on agenda item number 14 in the room?
Oh, I'm sorry, there's no members here.
Okay, great. Okay, let's move on to public comment on WebEx.
We are open for public comment via WebEx on item 14. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users, dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. Moving on to item 15, our agenda report on our September 11th, 2023 and January 22nd, 2024 and February 20th, 2024 Legislative and Budget Committee meetings. I will turn it over to Chair Reese Isbell.
Good afternoon. Yes, the Legislative and Budget Committee met on September 11th, 2023, January 22nd, 2024, and February 20th, 2024. And in particular, we received an update regarding the fee study and processing times on certain applications. And Chrissy can get into more of that. The committee also, leading up to the February meeting, we had two bills before us, and clearly there were several more that showed up that we already talked about today. And it's unfortunately, we didn't have the information in time for the last legislative committee meeting on the 20th. And I value that opportunity for us to be able to discuss these things in general. So, and also to hear public comment before it necessarily reaches the full board. That said, I appreciate the conversation that we were able to have on the 20th on these two bills. They are similar, and we voted to recommend a support position for the board, and happy to have Christy talk a little bit more about those bills.
All right, so first, As Member Isabel mentioned, we did a report to the committee regarding a review of our fees. We received, we went through an audit about 4 years ago, and with all the changes that had been happening with SB 803, the elimination of the practical examination and the staff, we needed to reevaluate our fees, specifically re-examination fees. And so we did do that, and we found was that our fees were actually, and just to preface that, we as our entity is only supposed to charge what it costs us to process this work. So we went through and we looked at everything that it costs to process the work, and it actually came out to be more than what we currently charge. Because we have a very substantial budget, there's also a budget crisis in California. The letter of the law would require us to raise our fees, which would not go over well. We don't need to raise fees. We have plenty of funds. And we also, it would be very bad timing in California in general to have to raise fees to our licensees. So that is why there's no recommendation coming forward. The fees will stay as is. And so moving to the legislation.
That's a quick question.
Yes.
What is the differential? What was the loss differential?
It was very low for it actually for the actually would be included. It's actually in here. Nope. So it was for the re-exam fees, it was a difference of plus or minus $10. For the initial fees, it was we were about $50 short. Around there. And that was not taking into consideration overhead costs such as the Department of Consumer Affairs, we use their cashiering unit. So anybody who applies with a paper application as opposed to online, that goes through the Department of Consumer Affairs cashiering unit first. So we staff that unit for our board. 3 staff that are on our organization chart are positioned here to handle all that cashiering work. And then we also have a mailroom here. And this industry still has a very high amount of paper applications, people that don't go online and pay. So what we did was we looked at our own staffing and our costs for the examination and our costs for maintenance and processing all of our either online or paper applications from our own staff in our office. We didn't even look at DCA's costs. I mean, there still are costs, but we didn't even go there because we were already over the amount. And because we have such a substantial budget, we met with the DCA's budget office and they agreed there's no way we would get approved to raise a fee right now when you have money.
That is true psychologically, but $50 is a big off. And when you add the other things in, it could reach $100 easily that we lose each time we do that.
It is, but again, we have in our licensing fees, our board's supported by our renewal fees is when we didn't even look at renewal fees. We were only looking at because what we were looking at was why should we charge the same amount, the $75 for an initial exam and a re-exam? And because really we do more on an initial exam. So we do spend more time on an initial exam because we have to input their proof of training. We have to input their address. We input a lot more information. And then on a re-exam, most of them come in online, not all, but it's a much quicker process.
I think that's very commendable that we were able to, that you managed the budget so well that it wasn't trickled down to the consumer at this point. So good job.
Okay, so on the pieces of legislation, SB 992 and AB 2166 are basically the same bill. I have talked to the author of SB 992 who has pulled their bill, so we don't need to discuss making a motion on that particular bill. They have let Assemblymember Weber go ahead and take this language forward. This bill is on textured hair. It is changing our laws to basically state that within the curriculum of barbering and cosmetology and hairstyling, that textured hair must be part of it. It also states that the examination must test on textured hair as well. Now, I can tell you that most good schools are already doing that. I talked to several schools. They were like, I asked if, how's this going to impact you? Wasn't going to impact them at all. They're already doing it. The exam already has textured hair questions on that. So we verified that as well. So the cost to us is minimal. We would, have to probably do some notification to the industry. But other than that, there's not a significant change. We don't have to change the exam. We don't have to change any of our forms. But it does require that some of the schools that may not be teaching textured hair will be required to teach textured hair. At my advisory committee meeting that I was at last week, we had a presentation from L'Oreal on, they have a textured hair program. It's, they offer it free to schools, and it is, I believe it was 18 hours that they put together for an online program dedicated to textured hair. So with that, this is, I do know that this bill is supported by several industry manufacturers. I know L'Oreal supports it, the Professional Beauty Federation, Professional Beauty Association supports it as well. We have included a letter in your packet from the Professional Beauty Federation of California that was submitted to the author's office, where they do have some concerns where they've listed support if amended, and staff is recommending a support position on this bill.
Yes, and just to follow up, as Christy mentioned, staff recommended a support, and also the committee had a good discussion about this bill on the 20th, and we also recommended, and while we haven't had a DEI committee meeting yet, and this will come up later when we have the update on the DEI, this is obviously an important piece of the work for diversity, equity, and inclusion generally for our legislative matters. So I would move that we support the bill, Assembly Bill 2166 by Assemblywoman Weber.
This is Steve Weeks. I have a question on AB 2166. The bill specifies hours of X hundred hours for this, X hundred hours for services, chemical hair services, 200 hairstyling services. Are these a breakdown of our current hours, or are they adding this on top?
No, that's our current statute. And they're basically just saying fit it in.
Gotcha.
Okay, any other comments or clarifying questions from board members? Okay, seeing none, can we have, if we're in agreement with the recommendation from the committee, can we have a motion?
Yes, I motioned, but I need a second.
Okay, thank you, Member Isbell. Can we have a second?
Second, Rostovsky.
I apologize, I've muted myself. Can we open it for public comment for members of the public in the hearing room?
No one in the room.
Thank you. Let's move on to WebEx.
I have a motion and a second for agenda item 15. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 15-second warning before your time expires. And it looks like I saw a hand from Monica, and then it went down. Please put it back up if you'd like to make a comment. All right, hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. All right, Monica, we're going to send you a second request to unmute your microphone.
I believe Monica is indicating in the chat that she does not have a microphone. She asked the question, moving forward, will it be better to submit all forms online? Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. I will respond to that in chat with the appropriate email address. All right. With that, there are no other requests for comment.
Thank you. Moving on to the, oh, can we have a roll call vote?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Jacob Rostovsky,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Let's move on to item number 16, report on September 11th, 2023 and January 22nd, 2024 from our DEI committee. I'll turn it to Chair Jacob Rostovsky.
Hello. So the DE&I committee met twice, one on September 11th and January 22nd. And there, the committee was provided updates to new DE&I webpage and discussed data collected from a survey focused around underrepresented communities. That was really great. So I'm going to defer to Christy for more information on that.
Sure. So the committee talked about, we did a survey and we received quite a few responses on different types of questions that we asked about DEI topics, and we'll use that to ensure our social media post addresses some of our underrepresented communities. And then we also shared our new DEI website. So if you haven't had a chance to look at that, we have the link posted here for our portion of our DEI website. And it's funny when you see things in the past. We talked about what we are going to, that we thought a textured hair bill was coming. And that came, I actually had 3 different offices contact me about that language. So I think I was right. I foresaw the future there. And then also something that I actually meant to mention earlier, but we have it here, is that we are currently in the process of translating our laws and regulations, our health and safety laws and regulations, to Russian and Ukrainian, because we have seen an increase in those license types, or those languages in our license types. So we don't have the exam yet, but we thought we should at least, we have an excerpt that's just our health and safety regulations that we thought would be important to translate.
Thank you, Christy. Much appreciated. And then I believe we also had discussed data through, as mentioned, survey, and then using data to ensure social media posts to address underserved communities. And then we have the DE&I webpage on the board's website, which is, barbercosmo.ca.gov/licensees/DE&I_fact. .shtml, but you could see that as well and posted in the agenda items. And then our executive officer, Christy, who you just heard from, shared that there might be, oh, well, she already actually discussed that. So she shared that there might be a bill related to textured hair, to school curriculums, and that was given. So there are no actions required from there. So thank you all.
Thank you, Member Rostovsky. Are there any questions or comments from the board members? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to public comment for members of the public in the room.
There's no public in the room.
Thank you. Let's move on to public comment on WebEx.
We are open for public comment on WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please type the word, or please raise a hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, please hit that ... if you are having trouble finding the hand button. We're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. So moving on to agenda item number 17, report on the January 22nd, 2024 Health and Safety Advisory Committee meeting. I will turn it over to myself as chair of that committee. So at our meeting, we did discuss updating the health and safety course and our plan to tackle that. I will turn it over to Christy to provide more information. And Christy, can I just ask that you also touch on, just circling back to the other items we worked on last year, the status of the updating the fines, as well as where we are with our regulations. Thank you.
Sure. So right now, our Health and Safety Committee is taking on the very large task of updating our health and safety course. What we did was we met with our committee members, which do include a representative from the Department of Public Health, Cal OSHA. We have some industry-specific people. We have a scientist on there. And so we all agreed to review certain portions. It's a very large curriculum. And so we're going to be parsing that out to those experts in their area. And they're going to be editing that to make sure things needed to be, maybe need to be updated. Maybe we could have said it a different way. They'll be bringing that back to us at our next committee. And what goes hand in hand with our health and safety curriculum is also, well, not necessarily hand in hand, but what the committee has looked at in the past is the health and safety regulations, updating those regulations. And we also needed to look at the fine schedule. The legislature asked us to look at fines on what is really, what's the risk involved with each of our fines that we issue. As you all know, we have a very long list of citable offenses. And so the committee looked at that. The committee went through and looked at a risk for every single violation that we looked at, that we have in our regulations right now. So now we're taking those regulations and we're updating those regulations, and we're going to mirror that to what the recommendations were on the fines. And that, there were various recommendations, which would be lower a fine for this, but maybe increase a fine for that. But we needed to redo our regulations first. And so that's something that we are working on in-house to get those regulations update. And then eventually we'll be taking back the full package of current regulations, as well as really assessing the fines, because that would be a separate regulation package to update any of those fines. And then it'll be all coming to the board.
Thank you so much for that, Christy. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment on this agenda item? They're in the room.
No members here.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to public comment on WebEx.
We are accepting public comment on agenda item 17. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. As a reminder to our mobile device users, tap that ... at the bottom of the screen if you are having trouble finding your hand button. And seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. Let's move on to item 18 on the agenda, discussion and possible action regarding rulemaking proposals. Christy?
All right, this is a doozy. So I see Christy Shields is coming to the table for me, and will be very helpful in this agenda item because we do have some decisions that the board will have to make. I'm going to attempt to give a brief overview, and then Christy is here to help. Agenda item, so this is item number 17 in your, I'm sorry, it's 18. And we are talking about our regulations for the cleanup for SB 803. We did receive a comment on these regulations, which is included. We provided a background and a summary of the responses. What we need the board to do today is to look at our recommended response that we are provided to the comment that we received during the public comment period. And we will need to either, staff has made a couple of recommendations. So we will start with the first comment. Am I doing this right, Christy? Okay. So the summary, we are recommending, I'm just getting to the right spot, which is on page.
Page 7 is where the motions
7,
are.
thank you. So the action that we would need today is after reviewing of the attachments. So we have provided the attachments that we received. So we've provided the comments that we received during the 45-day comment period. After review of the attachments for this item, including the written comments in attachment 1 and the proposed responses noted above, the board may consider the following actions. So you have 2 options that we'd like you to consider. Option 1 would be if you agree with staff on the recommended responses, you would direct staff to proceed as recommended to reject the comments as specified and provide the responses to the comments as indicated in the meeting materials. So what we have done is board staff we do reject these comments that we have received. We believe we have the statutory authority to move forward with our regulation package, which is removing the very specific regulations that we had before where it said you had to do 14 haircuts and 10 nails. So it was very specific, and this has now been removed based on SB 803. We want to remove it based on SB 803 because SB 803 took the curriculum and put it into statute as that 200 hours in hairstyling and 200 hours in chemical services. So the option 2 would be if you have any edits to our recommended response or disagree with staff and wish to accept any comments and make any other changes to its response. And then we've provided that information on what the board would need to do after you discuss that.
Correct. And I just want to add that it's basically the commenter's objection, the large part of his objections relates to the fact that you're repealing the practical operations regulations. And the reason you're doing that is because the practical examination was eliminated. And so the practical operations curriculum piece that the board used to had or currently has in regulation that we're recommending you repeal is there to prepare people for the practical exam, but there's no practical examination anymore. So therefore no need to have those regulations. In addition, the legislature actually repealed the language in the statute that authorized this board to adopt regulations to implement the practical operations standards. So they actually repealed all that authority. So when the legislature strikes authority like that, then that means you don't have it anymore. And I also want to point out that in your sunset paper, this board recommended that the committees should give strong consideration to eliminating the practical examination. The bill would accordingly eliminate the practical exam. Applicants would still be required to complete coursework and pass a written exam. However, the elimination of the practical exam would remove a major barrier to entry into the profession and likely reduce costs to those seeking licensure. So that was your recommendation to the legislature. And so it would be kind of difficult to argue and accept this comment in that regard because it would be arguing against the position this board took in legislation years ago. Any questions? I'd be happy to answer.
This is, yes, this is Board Member Isbell. I'm looking at the comment from the organization Council One Professional. Is that what we're talking about, correct?
Correct. There's just one commenter that submitted multiple comments.
So the second paragraph begins, as you know. Have we been in conversations with them before? Because he's saying, as you know, I've been researching this. I'm wondering what.
My understanding is that he made several Public Records Act requests to the board staff. And when he received these regulations, the proposed, because you notice your regulation changes for the public comment, right? So when that went out, he asked for all the legislative history and the regulations, the rulemaking packages that you had previously adopted to set practical operations standards. I think to research and write these written legal arguments for your consideration.
Okay, thank you. And so my larger question is, what does Council One Professional Corporation, what is their business? What is their role in making these comments? I'm just not familiar with who they are.
I don't have any background on the commenter. We're just simply responding to the legal arguments that he's made, and my recommendation would be to reject, because I just don't think you have any legal authority to continue to retain practical operations standards. That was
Sure.
eliminated.
And
So
yeah, I just, nowhere in the letter does it say who they are.
well, they
so,
don't have to legally.
Oh, of course, no, I'm just saying
Right.
for our purposes, I don't know who they are, so I'm just curious. Apparently, it wasn't in the letter and so forth. There's not even a website. So anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
This is Member Funk. So just to clarify, we're not discussing reinstating a practical portion of the exam right now that is not on the table, but that's what this petitioner wants.
He would like
Right.
you to retain the practical operations regulations that set minimum practical standards for practical operations, like the number of operations you have to complete
I see.
for curriculum. But that's no longer a requirement, because
Right.
that was set to prepare someone to take a practical exam, which no longer exists. So that's no longer a curriculum requirement. We're just trying to clean up the regulations to catch up with those legislative changes that happened a few years ago under SB 803.
And that makes sense. I think the petitioner is trying to take the opportunity to discuss the entire issue at hand again,
Right.
which is not on the table, am I
Should
understanding
have made
that?
those arguments
Okay.
when the bill was going through
Okay.
the legislature.
Thank you.
That's my opinion anyway. Okay, so any other questions on just the comment piece? We haven't actually gotten to the reg text yet. So as your executive officer mentioned, page 7, if you agree to reject the comments as we have discussed and as included in the meeting materials, then we would ask for you to move option number 1 on page 7 at the top, 3rd paragraph.
So that would be the motion we're asking for if you so agree to, if you agree with us rejecting the comments as stated, then we would need the option 1 stated as a motion on page 7.
Yeah, because in light of the fact that it's a non-negotiable situation to reinstate the practical part of the exam, I so move.
Can I have you read that paragraph?
Yeah.
For the record. Sorry. It says option 1 on page 7.
Direct staff to proceed as recommended to reject. Go ahead.
Okay, Member Funk here. I move to direct our staff to reject the comments as specified.
And provide the responses to the comments as indicated in the meeting materials?
Yes.
Yes. So moved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Funk. Do we have a second?
Hi, Member Kavanaugh. I second option 1.
Thank you. Okay, let's move to any other questions or comments from the board regarding this motion. Okay, let's move to public comment in the room.
No comments in the room.
Thank you. Let's move on to public comment here on WebEx.
We are now accepting public comment via WebEx. It's time to raise those hands on the motion before us. Please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users, dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. May we call a vote?
Callie May Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, now the second part of the same regulation package. So we're still talking about SB 803 cleanup. And because you just directed us to reject those comments, what we would now need you to do is to look at option 1, still on page 7, but down a little bit lower. So if the board rejects the previously discussed comments, which you did, and makes no further changes to the proposed text, staff recommends that the board consider the motion described in option 1 to complete the rulemaking process and adopt the proposed text. So that motion would be to, let's see, direct staff to take all, well, it's written here, I'm going to go ahead and read it. Direct staff to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking process, including the filing of the final rulemaking package with the Office of Administrative Law, authorize the executive officer to make any non-substantive changes to the proposed regulations and the rulemaking documents, and adopt the proposed regulations as noticed for Title 16 CCR sections 904, 909, 931, 932, 937, 962, and 998, and repeal sections 928, 934, 950.1, 950.2, 950.3, and 950.4. So moved.
And who is that?
Sorry, that was me finishing my comment.
Oh, okay. So if a member would like to move, you can just say.
I'll move that.
Great. So member Weeks moves, and can we have a second?
Munoz seconds.
Okay. Thank you, member Munoz. Okay, let's open up for public comment.
Can I ask one more question real quick?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay. On the proposed language, page 5 of 22, did our earlier action modify 931 interpreter?
So that was to request that the staff bring back text for action at a future meeting. So you decided to defer that action to a future meeting. That's why I came up, I'm like, do you want to make that change today? And everyone was like, no. So that's why I brought it up, because that language is actually at the bottom of page 5 of the proposed language, like you indicated. And so there was an opportunity to make that change, but it would have delayed the rulemaking for this.
Would
and
delay this that we've been working on for 3
years.
years.
So, we can still, as soon as we're done with this one, we can prepare and file the next one to make that change. But that was why I came up to find out if you wanted to do that.
Gotcha.
Great. Any other questions? All right, let's move on to public comment in the room.
No public comment in the room.
Thank you. Let's move on to public comment on WebEx.
We are now accepting public comment on the second motion for 18. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, there's a ... at the bottom of your screen if you're having trouble finding that hand button. We're going to take just a few more seconds to see if we have a request for public comment before continuing with the motion. Seeing no request for comment, do you wish to continue with the motion?
Yes, please. May we call our roll call?
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, we have one more item that actually needs some action in this agenda item, and then we'll have a couple updates. Our next item that we need action on is, we have it titled as item 17C. which is the discussion and possible action to initiate the rulemaking to amend Title 16, CCR Section 917, which is on our pre-apprentice training. So just briefly, this pre-apprentice training was given in SB 803 and cleanup language after to make it so that the board provides this pre-apprentice training. This was one piece that we felt was being charged to these students at a very high cost. And so the law actually now requires us to provide the training. And this is the regulation language that will be to implement this new process. We are currently working with a vendor on this pre-apprentice training, and we are very close to actually having the program completed. It's amazing. And so we think this is going to actually be super helpful to those who are trying to get into the industry. It's on basic patron protection and who the board is. So it really gets to the point of how to be safe right from the beginning. So what you want to do is look at all the way to the back of this agenda item. So right before your 19 tab is the language that we're talking about today for the pre-apprentice training. And it has all the specifics that are underlined, the line out of what was there before, and then what we have now added to this language in working with our regs council and also knowing what the new program is going to look like that we've worked with the vendor. So after discussion, we have a recommendation on page 9 of 9 to approve the proposed regulatory text for Title 16, CCR Section 917, as set forth in Attachment 4. Direct staff to submit the text to the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs and the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for review. And if no adverse comments are received, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to initiate the rulemaking process, make any non-substantive changes to the package, and set the matter for hearing if requested. If no adverse comments are received during the 45-day comment period and no hearing is requested, authorize the executive officer to take all steps necessary to complete the rulemaking and adopt the proposed regulations at Section 917 as noticed. Christy. Yes.
So I do apologize for the length of the motions. It's something that we've had to develop over the years to address the Offices of Administrative Law's questions on the authority the executive officer has to act with respect to your regulations, and the staff have the authority to prepare the rulemaking and move it through the process. So I know it's really long, but every bit of that is blessed, if you will, by OAL, and that's why we write it that way. I did also want to point out this is going to be no cost to the trainees. So your board is absorbing the cost of developing and providing this program. So I just want you to be aware of that, and you'll want to make sure you keep track of the costs for you going forward and the impact to your budget. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for that. Any questions or comments from board members? Otherwise, can I have, can someone adopt that motion that Christy read out?
Hi, Member Kavanaugh. I move to approve and the proposed regulatory text for Title 16 CCR Section 917 to set forth as Attachment 4. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we have a second?
Jimenez, second.
Thank you, Member Jimenez. Okay, let's move to public comment. Any members of the public wish to comment on this item there in the room?
Yes, we have one member.
Thank you.
Jamie Schrabeck, Precision Nails. I'd rather comment now than burden you with comments during a 45-day period. You're welcome. Wow. I mean, if we can get all this covered in a 2-hour training, that would be amazing at no cost. I would hope it would be available for every person who wanted to pursue a license, not just apprentices. And I would hope that we would align the language in this I thought we ditched the word patron some time ago, and we should be using the word client because that's the term that we're using in all of the newly proposed health and safety regulations. Earlier, Ms. Harris mentioned, or it was commented on, that workers' comp is an issue for apprentices. So I'm hoping that there's some basic labor law included in this program so that those apprentices aren't exploited from day one. And if they were to enter into an arrangement that didn't include workers' comp, they'd know to report that to the board so that you'd become aware that that was the case. Otherwise, I think this is a great idea. Thank you.
No more comments in the room.
Thank you. Let's move on to public comment in WebEx.
We are once again open for public comment on agenda item 18. If you'd like to make a comment on the new motion, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, thank you. Chrissy, are there updates here on item number 18?
We need the vote first for.
Oh, of course, the vote. Yes, let's call a vote.
Callie Mae Pham,
Yes.
Megan Ellis,
Yes.
Kelly Funk,
Yes.
Reese Isbell,
Yes.
Yolanda Jimenez,
Yes.
Colette Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Tamika Miller,
Yes.
Danielle Munoz,
Yes.
Steve Weeks.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you so much.
All right, we had just a couple, one last item. We have 4 other regulation packages on apprenticeship, on schools and externs, on disciplinary guidelines, and on health and safety. Those are all currently being worked on at the staff level, and hopefully we will have a better update for you at the next board meeting on those. And that's it for this item.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's move on to the item number 19 on our agenda, public comment on items not on the agenda.
Actually,
So at this, oh,
this is
yes.
Board Member Isbell. I just had a quick question before we move to that. In our packet, following all this section, there's some document for license to operate mobile units. Is that related to?
That's part of the SB 803 language. We had to update all of our forms. So it's part of the regulation package where we had to show the old forms and the new forms.
Okay, so this is the one I'm looking at is an old form, the one
Yes.
with all the errors on it.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And it's very old.
It says Pete Wilson is the governor, so thank you very much.
Okay. All right, let's move on to item 19, public comment on items not on the agenda. So at this time, we invite members of the public to come up and provide comment.
I see none.
Okay, all right, let's move on to WebEx then.
It's agenda item 19, items not on the agenda. If you would like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder to our mobile device users, please hit that ... if you are having a hard time finding the hand button. Looking around, I see no request for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 20, suggestions for future agenda items. I open it up to our board members. Are there any suggestions for future items you would like to see on the agenda? Okay, I don't see any. Yes, nothing. Should we take public comment on this, Sabina? I'm not clear.
Yes.
Okay, so let's open it up for public comment. Members of the public, they're in the hearing room.
No members here.
And one last time, let's open it up for public comment here on WebEx on item number 20.
All right, last call for public comment. If you'd like to make a comment, raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. For our mobile device users, please tap that ... button at the bottom of the screen if you are having trouble finding your hand button. And it looks like something has been written out in our Q&A. I'm going to check on that while we wait for a hand to go up. All right, and I believe this is from a person who does not have a microphone, so I'm going to read it aloud. And Monica says, I am curious why the pass percentage is being lowered instead of looking at the test, and what has changed that is causing the drop all across California. Will barber exam percentage be lowered any further? All right, and thank you for that comment. If you would like an answer to that question, I suggest you email barbercosmo@dca.ca.gov. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat in just a moment. In the meantime, we're going to check for hands, and it appears that we don't have any yet, so no comments.
Okay,
Further
thank
comments.
you. Thank you so much. All right, so our next item on the agenda, the board is actually going to go into closed session. And when we reconvene, the only item left will be adjournment. So thank you so much to everyone for your time today. I know it was a long meeting, but as always, your participation is so greatly appreciated. And that will be all. Let's move into closed session.
We'll just need a minute to get all of the staff out
All
of
right.
the room, so.
Okay, well, how about let's take a 10-minute break?
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and I believe I saw Olivia. And I'm also looking for Catherine. Hold on just a moment. All right. Now, who in our panelist list needs to be removed?
Never mind. Oh, can you hear me now? This is Sabina.
Hi, Sabina.
Hey, so our board members are going to remain. I have Shelley remaining also to shadow for a closed session. I have Olivia and is it Catherine who's learning, Olivia?
Correct. Catherine will take lead and I will be assisting as questions come up and so forth.
Great.
But yeah, she'll
Okay.
be doing the presentation and assisting the board members.
Wonderful. And then Natalie Mitchell should probably also not be in this practice session.
All right, we're going to
And
move her to
and
the
Carrie.
attendee list.
And Shelby. Do you want to who are you going to make host? Me?
I would just leave myself still on, so
Okay.
if I get booted off, you're gonna lose your
Got
board
it.
members online, so
Okay.
maybe we could just leave me on and I'll step out and then
Perfect. So let me double check everybody in the practice session. And David, will you make it into a practice session? And
Working on that right now.
Thank you. I'm assuming. Okay, let me get everybody back in here. Okay. I don't know if I have ability to change that screen.
Not a problem. Do we need to reestablish quorum or are we okay?
Yeah, we're out in open session now. Sorry?
Okay. Sorry, do we need to reestablish quorum or do any of that? Or are we okay?
I can see if, as long as I see everybody on our cameras and I'm looking at everybody in the room. Hello. We are all here. Let me look at online. I have Jacob, Danielle.
Here.
Thank you. And I have Kelly May. Perfect. I will hand it over to you.
Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. So we just finished closed section. The last thing on our agenda is adjournment today. So I don't need a motion for that, right? Okay, so we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I'll see you at the next meeting, probably online again.
Bye, thank you.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
All right, have a
Bye.
good DRC
Bye, everybody.
tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
All right, Sabina, anything before I close this down?
No, I was just going to do it, but you beat me to the punch.
All righty.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful evening.
You too.
Oh, you have to close it down. I can't. You're the host. If anyone in the hearing room sees Alex, will you grab his attention for me, please?
Did you say Alex?
Yes, please.
He's not back yet.
All right, I've got an email out to him.
Okay, yeah, he said email instead of Teams.
I've done both.
He's here.